unga crisis in every election in an attempt to gain political mileage.
As I've observed in our country, indeed every election in our country has attracted an unga crisis. And in fact, at times it seems to be engineered, a connection between unga and its high price and elections. There is an obvious trend between the manner the price of unga goes up and the tempo taken up during elections. But why do I say this? I say this because in July of 2012, months before the March 2013 election, the price of a packet of a 2-kilogram package of unga shot up from 70 shillings to 130 shillings. Therefore, making my administration, when it came into office, the first item we had to address was to intervene to bring down this price as an urgent priority.
Addressing the nation from status after meeting with key stakeholders in the food industry, President Kenyatta reiterated that despite the criticism by some leaders, especially those who have been part of his Jubilee administration, the record shows that his government has relentlessly sought solutions to pertinent issues affecting the country with or without elections.
Today, once again, months to the August 2022 election, the price of unga has, as per previous, shot up again. It has moved from a price of about 100 Kenya shillings to 205 Kenya shillings currently. So the national question, ladies and gentlemen, that all of us must pose from this trend is it a coincidence that we have an unga crisis just before every election? Is this the result of a market dynamic, or is it a deliberate outcome? This question, ladies and gentlemen, we have to put forward. We must ask ourselves, and we must put to bed.
You will begin buying a 2 kg packet of unga at 100 shillings from previous 205 shillings in the food subsidy program announced by President Uhuru Kenyatta. In a deal with millers, the government will, however, forgo billions in taxes collected as railway development levy and import declaration fees charged on all imported maize, which have been suspended with immediate effect.
We announced a fiscal measure focused on food subsidy as our fifth stimulus program, covering the supply and distribution of our nation's staple food, which is maize meal, across our country. My administration has been engaging for the last few days with all milling companies registered by the Agricultural Food Authority, and as a consequence issued a legal notice under the hand of the Cabinet Secretary for the National Treasury. And through this notice, and effective immediately, number one, the railway development levy on all imported maize shall stand suspended. Number two, the import declaration fee, IDF, on all imported maize is also hereby suspended. Maize flour shall retail across the entire territory of the Republic of Kenya at the price of Kenya shillings 100, down from Kenya shillings 205.
And President Uhuru Kenyatta has urged 7 newly appointed Court of Appeal judges to serve the nation with fidelity, integrity and without fear or favor. Speaking shortly after witnessing the swearing-in of the judges at State House Nairobi, President Kenyatta asked them to deliver justice in a speedy, accessible and consistent manner. Now, the fight against terrorism in the country has received a major boost after the government, in partnership with Britain, opened the first anti-terrorism police unit Coast Regional Headquarters in Mombasa. The headquarters were unveiled alongside a new police station to be known as the Mombasa Police Station. The official unveiling of the facility, which cost 81 million shillings, was presided over by British High Commissioner to Kenya Jane Marriott and Interior Cabinet Secretary Fred Matiang'i.
While we hold terrorists in these facilities, we are also able to process them through the justice chain here. That keeps the population out there safer, gives us an opportunity to expeditiously deal with their challenges, and also ensure that cases involving terror and terrorist activities do not linger around in our justice system. We live in a globalized environment. Trouble somewhere is trouble everywhere, and therefore we are gratified that our partners are willing to work with us to address this challenge of terrorism.
And finally, as we approach the August 9th general election, we call upon all Kenyans to make sure that we maintain peace, especially through the Elections Bill campaign, that is, through Standard Media Group and NCIC. This is News. I'm Dennis Oseta. Good morning.
this nation has never healed genuinely from the 2000-2008 violence. We've never had a healing process. We swept it under the rug.
Let me tell you, the handshake was the most disastrous political event in the history of country after the coup attempt of 1982.
There's no Kikuyu pothole, Luo lack of water,
Right.
or Kamba, lack of traffic.
Yeah.
There is no Luya lack of drugs in the hospitals. Or Jaluo one. All our issues are the same issues.
If you are in a room and just about everybody in that room has a court case or another, what impression does that give you?
What are you saying? Why haven't you done it in the last 20 years? But they're telling us, like August, some miracle is going to happen. My friend, I want to tell Kenyans you'll be in for a rude shock.
The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation.
All right, started Thursday and we're looking at traffic building up in only a few parts of the city right now. It looks like folks are taking the time to get out this Thursday. A little bit of traffic on the expressway exits is what we are going to see for now. Jogger Road starts early as usual. Getting into the city is going to probably be interesting today as it's going to be a bit slow. Coming off Haile Selassie, you have some traffic as well. But apart from that, everybody is making a slow exit into, slow entry into Thursday. Let's see what happens. Unfortunately, many accidents occurring, really brutal ones last night. Let's try and keep things safe this morning, shall we? SpiceFM KE on Twitter. Talk to us there. Let's keep things moving as we get into the weekend.
.9 Spice FM, Mombasa. This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Okoh, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latiff, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down.
Dakika 8 baada ya saa 12 asubuhi. Hujambo msikilizaji. Ndu?
Yes.
How you doing?
Very well, thank you. Good morning.
Good morning yangu ni sawa.
Good morning yangu niko sawa. Naona mtu anaimba hapa. Akona tune.
Sorry.
Akona tune.
Yes, brother.
I'm very well, thank you. Now a song in the mind, in the morning. Yes.
Okay.
Begins the day well.
Yes.
I have days like that.
You do, eh?
Mama said there would be days like
Yes,
this.
I wake up. Not Papa, because he was a Rolling Stone.
Voila.
How are you though, City?
Bro, I'm actually very well. I no longer speak of the cold weather because it's a constant.
This one is a bit,
Yes.
as if.
It's a bit stiff.
Hey.
Easy at least. This one?
This is kind of funny.
Yes, exactly.
So what now?
XYZ.
So many descriptions have been used in a very short
And then
period
you
of
throw in
time.
an apostrophe at the
Clouds
end.
are funny. Did you say clouds or cows? Clouds are funny. What are those?
Kind of funny.
Caudo. It's one word. Okay. So confused. Hi, Eric. How are you?
I'm fine. Yes.
Glad.
I'm well. Yes. When we were having a conversation out there with our colleagues from Vibes Radio and Berur FM, we used Swahili. We said, Dunia ni mduara. And then there was Dunia ni rangi rangile.
The Rangi bit we got.
Rangile now.
No, we said, no, this is Rangile.
Who is it?
Yes, where is he from? Just asking.
What is it?
I have no idea what you're on about.
Thank you very much. Even
Neither,
us, we
neither
have
do we.
no idea.
Ish. Neither do we. What does it mean?
Confucius.
Dunia ni rangi rangile. Ever heard of that?
Never.
Never, sindio? Well, we have, but we don't know what it is. Dunia ni rangi rangile, meaning sasa nani hakuna mtu. Anyone who knows what this means. Dunia ni duara, rangi rangile.
What does duara mean?
Bila pingamizi. Duara? Duara is
Viringo.
Viringo.
Good night, no. Sawa.
Me feeling.
Sawa, I understand.
I'm trying to. I want to say circle, but then it's circular.
Yes, that's why the word Viringo.
Okay.
It's like someone saying that someone's head is round. It isn't round. Probably oval.
You've never seen somebody with a round head, Ziti?
Or pear-shaped.
Yes, pear-shaped, maybe. Round head.
Yeah, they're there. I personally, me.
I've told you before. This country you come from is a funny one. People with round heads.
Go far away.
Hey, okay. You can fit them into a square hole.
No.
Wow.
That one, you just leave them be.
Welcome to the Situation Room, everybody. If you know what that means, please just give us the exact meaning of dunia ni rangi rangile. Dunia ni duara na rangi rangile. The conversations that we're going to have today, it's Thursday, the 21st day of July, 2022. It's hashtag Justice Thursdays. Today, we want to focus on the Environment and Land Relations Court. This court was established in the High Court 10 years ago, and the current presiding judge is Justice Oscar Angote. Justice Oscar Angote will be joining us at 7 a.m. today to talk about this 10 years of the Environment and Labour Relations Court at the division of the High Court, what they've done, and the vision for enhancing service delivery in land and environment matters. 7 a.m., that's the conversation. Okay? Okay. 8 a.m. So, let's talk about these two leading coalitions, the Azimio Coalition and the Kenya Kwanza Coalition, and their promises, particularly on the very critical issues like food security, like healthcare and such. And in whose hands are we safe? We're going to be joined by two analysts. One is Gerald Bitok, and the other one is Herman Manyora. They'll be here with us at 8 a.m. just to have that breakdown of, when you listen to each of them, you get a sense of a leaning somewhere. But also, let's call on them to be objective and let's interrogate these coalitions. COVID, are we still below 5%?
Well, yes. A slightly higher number of people tested positive for the disease. From a sample size of 2,222, 101 people tested positive. The positivity rate is now at 4.5%. 85 Kenyans and 16 foreigners infected with COVID. Number still under 5, not a bad thing. But of course, it would be nice to have 0. Yeah. If we're looking at global numbers, 570. Yesterday we were so the world's tally rose by about 1.2 million over the last 24 hours to 570,835,424. So we know that the symptoms of COVID are changing. We know that you have something different now. A bit of a sore throat and a hoarse voice is the lead symptom now of COVID-19. We have all sorts of things happening around the world.
Is that symptom also being noticed in Kenya, in this part of the world?
Yes. So what happened is that there was what they are calling a collective study, which the World Health Organization then was able to put through. And the countries then that were on the continent that were looked through were Kenya, Uganda, Nigeria, Senegal, Ghana, South Africa, and one other I can't remember. But from the countries that were on the continent that were taken, again, the sore throat and the hoarse voice is one of the lead
Still
symptoms.
stands out.
Yes, it does. The Biden administration is elevating a division of one of the federal departments on the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention and the Food and Drug Administration to oversee pandemic responses. They're looking at, again, okay, so they've been, having this on and off romance with wearing masks or not wearing them, but they're trying to keep it a public transit mandate that if you're going to be traveling in public, then you should have a mask on. But it's going to be difficult for him to do this. It's going to be difficult for them to do this, is what they're saying, because it's never been one stance. You see in China where there's no question. It's a zero policy. It's a zero policy. We're going to do whatever we need to do to keep COVID at bay. And Biden has come under harsh criticism that, you've never really said, if it's one thing, can we stick to it? Yes, there has been the mask mandate in federal buildings and such, but then, all right, because of the autonomy of several states, because of the federal system, they can do whatever it is that they want. So how much of a handle then does the federal state have over, each individual state has become an issue. But now with this new creation of this particular department, they're hoping to now coordinate the nation's response, because that has been one of the things that they've lacked, apt coordination, according to them. So hopefully this department, according to them, will now be able to give the United States a concerted outlook and effort on, the coronavirus pandemic.
It's a continuous cycle of hits and misses. All the best to them. Let's take this break then. At 17 after 6, we are live streaming the show already on YouTube and Facebook. If you're online, say hello to us. Tell us where you're locked in from today. We'll be doing our usual roll call very, very soon after we take a look at the weather forecast. We will tell you. Nairobi, cold. London, extremely hot. Bus.
Do you sometimes come across all this interesting and amazing content online, and before you know it, you're 10 tabs in? Or sometimes your browser refreshes itself and you lose that video or write-up you were keen on. In these moments, I bet you wish you could store this content somewhere so it's accessible to you when you need it or want to share it. Well, you can. It is as simple as putting it in your pocket. Thanks to Pocket by Mozilla, you can curate what you love, save it to your list, and access it even when you're offline. It gets better. You have the option of listening to your favorite articles, and before you ask, of course you can watch video content as well as even when offline. Filter the best of the internet and download
14 degrees and cloudy conditions in Nairobi. We'll see highs of 21
and
lows of 13 today. It's cloudy at 13 in Nakuru, highs of 23. 20 will be the high in a rainy Nyeri this morning at 14, and it's 13 and mostly cloudy in Eldoret this morning. It'll go to highs of 22. Rain showers in Mombasa. We hear it's raining cats and dogs. Well, let's see. Highs of 26 and lows of 21. Rain showers at 22 in Malindi. Highs of 27 and lows of 21. Clear conditions in Kisumu at 18. Highs of 27. And we'll see highs of 26 in a clear Kakamega currently. Kampala is clear at 18, highs of 27, and we'll see highs of 27 as well in a mostly cloudy Dar es Salaam. It's 10 degrees and mostly clear in Johannesburg, highs of 16 and lows of 7. A clear morning in Lagos at 24, highs of 29, and 30 will be the high in a partly cloudy Kinshasa, currently at 22. Looking out into Beijing, it's sunny at 30 going into afternoon Thursday. 34 will be the high, coming down to lows of 24. And it's a cloudy morning in Paris at 18 degrees. We'll see highs of 30. Thunderstorms expected later. Mostly cloudy conditions at 18 in London. We'll see highs of 24 today. 34 will be the high in a clear New York. Still Wednesday night. We'll see lows of 25.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM.
It's how many minutes? 20 minutes after 6. Who's online?
Everybody is tuned in this morning. Benson says he's tuned in from Daraweta, Bomet County. And he says the meaning of your proverb, okay, I don't know that it's a proverb yet, but these things that you're asking, Rendile, what were you saying? Ruai? Duara. Those ones.
Duara rangi rangile.
Now, listen to this. The meaning of your proverb is sometimes maneno yanenda kombo, ukiangalia huko na pale, no one is willing to help you. What are those?
Very well put.
Means it's like, just like that.
He has put it very well.
Okay, I'm still as confused as I was 30 minutes
That's
ago.
the general idea.
Okay. Paulo Marimba says, good morning. He's tuned in from Bamburi, but baridi na mvua ndio ngori. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry. Tuned in is Tevezi. Martin Wandei is tuned in. He says, brothers and sisters. He's tuned in from Gigiri. A wet morning in Mombasa. Mwange Joroge. He says, hey, it actually is raining cats and dogs. Good morning to you. Tuned in from Nairobi, Hiram. And Davey says he's tuned in. And he says, Dunia Rangi Rangile. We color our world beautifully wherever we are.
That's nice.
Yeah? Yeah. A single Brian says he's ready for an engaging conversation. And he says, how are you people doing? Can you answer the young man? How are you people doing?
We people
are doing well. And we thank that individual. Name
that
by the
person.
way.
His name is Asingo, and he's from his side of the world is Homa Bay.
He's a single person.
I tell you what?
He's a single person.
Asingo.
That's his name. It's one word.
Asingo.
Yes, not
Asingo.
And
like
then
you want to say.
His name is Asingo.
Yes, that's it. Yes. When Asingo, thank you very much. Thank you for asking.
Mwalimu Dominic is tuned in from Kaptarakwa and says good morning. Machakos, well represented by Ashley. Good to have you in the studio this morning with us. John Rory tuned in from Mombasa. Have a lovely day, people, Angela says. And good morning. Mwangi Maina says good morning. Ivan Katabazi is tuning from Kampala. And Robin Bogo tuning from Mombasa. From the Busia border, Zachary Odio is tuned in. And Morris Oyando says, good morning from Ombay.
And good morning to Morris.
Good morning to Morris as well.
Everybody, good morning, CT.
Good morning, boys and girls.
The proverb of the day is brought to you by Aquafresh Fresh Gel.
Zimbabwe.
Yeah. Liberate Zimbabwe.
Well, yes, indeed. You want to liberate Zimbabwe. Right. Proverbs from Zimbabwe. What was Zimbabwe previously called?
Rhodesia.
And the capital was previously called?
Victoria what?
Matabele land.
This man, disruptor.
Before these social roads came, what was it called?
Cecil. Name.
Shosho.
Cecil becomes Shosho.
Shosho roads.
Shosho roads. Right. A grilled locust is better than no soup.
A what?
A grilled locust. Locust, the bird.
It's actually not a bird.
It flies.
Nemudege.
Does it not fly? Okay. Let's do reset. Insect. Okay. Locust.
So a grilled locust is better than no soup.
Yes. Right. Okay, insect, Nani. We've agreed. It's insect. Flying notwithstanding, insect.
It's better than no soup.
Better. If you're looking for something to eat and there's a locust, grill it. Better that than for this soup which will never come.
Brush your teeth twice a day with Aquafresh Fresh Gel, the secret to long-lasting fresh breath, strong teeth, and healthy gums.
Okay. www.standardmedia.co.ke. Are you a member of our online community? Please Log on there and become one. You get access to lots of content. Not just today's news, but yesterday's news as well. And the days before's. Tomorrow's, you'll also get it tomorrow. Karua Gachagua debate, brilliance, warts and all. Dissected the body language, the hits and misses, and much more from that debate that took place on Tuesday night. That's a big story that's being promoted this morning on the publication www.standardmedia.co.ke. You also remember that the Standard Group has been serializing a couple of stories on the Uhuru Kenyatta legacy as he nears his exit. You can actually just go and put all those stories together into your pocket and you will consume them later. You know, maybe on that one day when the president is doing his farewell speech from State House and saying, fellow Kenyans, I did it my way. I did it my way. You can actually just go back and read all that content. Pocket by Mozilla. Download it on Google Play Store and Apple App Store. What's in the headlines?
Quite a lot, but no sooner than teachers have decided, look, we cannot. They're pushing for a 60% pay increase. The lowest paid teacher will get an increment of 14,550 and the highest 89,016 shillings if a new push by the KNUT for a salary review is approved by the TSC. So they've said no, even as people are talking about there's no maize, there's no what, look, also for us there's no. The lowest paid teacher could get this pay increase if this push goes through. The Kenya National Union of Teachers wants the Teacher Service Commission to review the 2021-2025 collective bargaining agreement to effect a 60% salary increase for the 300,000 odd teachers. If the push, presently teachers at job group B1 have a basic salary of 24,250. If the push gets TSC's nod, the highest paid teachers who fall under job group D5 will get a raise of about 89,016 shillings. This could push the teacher's new salary to 237,000, up from the present 148,360. In addition to these, the union also wants the government to cater for their refresher training courses to cushion teachers from the high cost of living. Remember that there was this whole the refresher courses, and it was said, look, each teacher will have to pay, I believe the minimum was 6,000 shillings. We saw this last year. The union demands that members of parliament approve the 4.5 billion shillings to foot the teacher professional development refresher courses for teachers. The union also wants a review of promotions criteria to benefit tutors who have obtained higher qualifications. Our position as KNUT was and continues to be that promotion policy be reviewed to accommodate, motivate, and encourage teachers with higher academic qualifications so that their effort does not go to waste. This is according to Collins Oyo, who is the Secretary General. The demands emerged after the union held a 3-day consultative meeting with the TSC in Naivasha. Oyu said that last year they signed the 2021-2022 CBA, which was a non-monetary one, if you remember, because they were looking at issues of prolonged maternity leave, introduction of paternity leave, and other things, so non-monetary, right? But they've said, look, in as much as this was all right, the high cost of living is an issue that we cannot ignore, and that they said it must be reviewed to ensure the teachers, get a salary increment. The inflation rate at the moment does not allow that we hold several boardroom meetings with the employer, government agencies, and even friends without mentioning the aspect of a monetary gain. According to teachers, we want money and not stories.
So why was there no monetary increase last year? Because of the SRC. What the SRC had said, let's not have any increment of salaries for anybody in public service for a number of years because of the prevailing economic situation.
Yes.
Now these ones are saying we have prevailed.
As the situation has prevailed, and so have we.
Okay. Well, it's timely. It's just 18 days to an election. It's a good threat. This is the final push for people to cross over the line. So, just the same way we are seeing the president himself spearheading the issue of food security, maybe maybe a little bird has told Mr. Collins or you that you may get audience in this one. You may get audience on this one. Just get a promise, because that's all you need. Just a promissory note. Because the next time now you're threatening to strike, you'll be saying, we have this on paper. We are supposed to be receiving some increment, even if it's not the 14,000 that they want for the minimum teacher. It's going to be 8,000, but they have it on paper.
Exactly.
You may find it actually. Yeah, it's very well timed. I don't know whether it's very well timed, but I can say it's timely.
It's timely.
Yes. As we head to the general election. 6:30. Let's take a quick break. We see how the roads are looking like before we look at more newspaper headlines. A very good morning to you. This is Kenya's biggest conversation, the Situation Room.
Are you looking for employment and are tired of sending job applications without any response? Gone with no response? Tarmacking is now a thing of the past thanks to Skiza. Dial star 811 star 1 star 21 hash and subscribe to a ringback tune that reflects your qualifications only for 1.5 bob a day. And your callers will know your credentials and send you opportunities they come across. Set the tone with Skiza.
We know it is cold, but Cold Stone Creamery has hot deals for you. This month, enjoy cups of rich and creamy ice cream, delicious ice cream cakes, and fresh oven-baked cakes at amazing prices. Visit any of our stores in Nairobi or Mombasa.
In and outbound traffic on Juga Road this morning, and we're looking at that will slow down as we get towards the City Stadium roundabout, but nothing too painful at the moment. Looks like folks are thinking about this Thursday and not necessarily on the roads. Langata Road is building up a little bit here and there, and the CBD does not look like it's going to be jam-packed, at least for another hour or so. So now might be your time to make the great escape from Nairobi traffic. Think about that. How about today we take a look at what's going on in other towns around Nairobi. Into Mombasa, it's also just creeping up on you as you get into the city. And let's look west of Nairobi as you get out towards Naivasha, Nakuru, and then westerly towards Kisumu. Traffic is also starting to build up this morning, but nothing painful at all. That's what it looks like around the country. Let's know what's going on in your neck of the woods. Talk to us on SpiceFM KE on Twitter.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah.
You're listening to Spice FM.
It's 26 minutes to 7. Page 4 and 5 of the Standard this morning is looking at what the president did yesterday. President Uhuru Kenyatta yesterday announced that a 2-kilogram packet of maize flour will be retailing at 100 bob, following 4 days of intense talks between officials at the Agriculture Ministry and millers. Without revealing the exact date when Kenyans would begin to buy cheaper unga, the head of state noted that the subsidy program would see the government compensate millers 105 bob for every 2 kg packet of maize flour that they sell to retail outlets. Prices of unga have risen sharply, and following a drought and a surge in prices of fertilizer, with the 2 kg packet retailing as high as 230 in some outlets. The news of cheap unga offers much needed relief to millions of Kenyans who've been overburdened by the high food prices. Now, the president himself had to call in the millers to State House yesterday and make this announcement. It was not clear by yesterday afternoon whether Kenyans were going to once again start enjoying the ugali with as much regularity as before. One of the issues that were to be resolved is the payment of the pending bills. Some millers saying that they sold maize under the 2017 subsidy program and they have not yet received money. Most of the millers had been pushing back, seeking assurances from the state that their payments would not delay as they did in the last subsidy program. On Tuesday, the millers had sent a statement saying they were still consulting with the government. There are grumbles that only one of the millers' lobbies, the Cereal Millers Association, has been represented in the subsidy, yet it represents only between 35 and 40% of the market. The issue of logistics, that's how the maize would be moved from the mills to the retail outlets, also featured. Questions over what was to be done by the stock on shelves, which had been acquired at a higher price. This might explain why the president has been silent on when the subsidy was to begin. But the communique from State House said beginning immediately.
Monday. That's what it said.
So that one is on one side. On the other side of the page, small-scale millers say the state has locked them out of the subsidy scheme. The traders said yesterday it would be expensive for them to invest in the new requirements that will be enforced for only 28 days. Those who spoke to the Standard said they were left out of the talks with state officials, urging that the conditions that were agreed upon will favor big established operators. It's difficult for small-scale millers to meet the new conditions set by the government within a short timeline. Most of us have been out of operation for some time now, said Rachel Miami, director of Ram Millers Limited in Eldoret. Her company is among 30 members of the Grain Belt Millers Association, most of whom have closed shop following the high cost of maize for processing. The maize shortage has seen some traders buying the cereal from as far away as Zambia and Malawi. The business people are attributing the increased prices to costly import procedures and long hours spent transporting the grain to the local market. So the small ones are saying, in fact, because of the shortage of maize, we had even closed business. And now the requirements that have been put in place for us to be part of the subsidy program that will only be in effect for 28 days are even just too expensive and prohibitive. So we'll still remain out of business.
Yeah.
So this one is just benefiting the big boys. And as small people have nowhere to go. Do you have clarity on when and how this is going to work?
It just seems like it's a bit of a mess right now. So small millers are going to be stuck with their grain, essentially.
Who's causing this mess?
The bigger millers will be part of the subsidy program. Smaller millers will be stuck with, unless they'll be forced into a situation where they will sell their grain to the bigger millers at a loss. That's what's going to happen.
How many weeks do we have before the elections?
We have 2.5 weeks to the election.
Precisely.
Yeah.
I mean, this is reminiscent of certain things we've seen happening where the president actually states and says this is what is going to happen, and then God alone knows what happens in between.
Yeah.
And what then is the outcome is not what the president has stated. What is it about this issue of subsidy that is actually a problem? And who is or who are the people who are determined that this thing must be?
The problem with the subsidy, unfortunately, is that the folks who are providing the good oftentimes get the short end of the stick.
Yes.
That they do not get the money. Look at it. Look at oil. Look at oil and fuel. The marketers complain that they don't get the money from government.
Look at the same guys, the millers.
Same millers.
2017, same promise made.
2022, they've not received it. That's where the problem is. That you can talk about a subsidy. Everybody goes into a state of jubilation. We say that unga prices are going to go down. Okay, wonderful. But the people who are providing the good don't get the money. And it's not a fantasy thing we're talking about. They said 2017, we had the same conversation. 2022, 5 years down the line, we have not gotten the money. And then you're telling us to go back into the same agreement. Even you, with two eyes closed and kneeling on
the conversation we had
agree?
with the oil marketers when we had the situation in this country. Evidently, clearly, there was a delay in paying these people.
Yep. You could call it that, yeah.
Yes, there was a delay. But it wasn't just a delay. There were promises and then there were delays.
Yes.
And the marketers were a bit apprehensive with saying, folks,
we've been down this rabbit hole before.
We have. And you know us, we pay for ours cash. So we're already in the red even as we approach these things. So now if you don't pay us, the ink gets redder. Okay? But somehow, it was their fault.
Of course.
Yes.
They're the ones who are hoarding the product and not selling it to the market.
That's why there's no fuel
Yet
in the,
they've been
the
licensed to
and
sell.
they're also selling it to Uganda and other places.
Forget about the fact that Uganda was paying them up front, but okay.
Forget the fact that they hadn't been paid.
You know?
You see, there's always a narrative that is spun to explain a situation which is far simpler than the explanation. You want millers to provide this foodstuff at a subsidized. Why don't you pay the millers? Why?
This is going to be dicey.
It will.
Because already the communication from State House said effective immediately.
Yes.
Now, effective immediately means that today
it's announced midnight change.
You go to a shop and buy maize flour at 100 bob.
Yes.
Now, all those issues of, what was in store by the wholesalers, blah, 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 blah. Because the wholesalers are not part of this conversation. They should have been part of this conversation. What do you have in stock?
There's something I want to ask here. Who are these individuals who think that they can give a pushback to a directive that the president has given? Because it's clearly that. Do you think the president or State House made the announcement without knowing what was possible and what was not? No. President Uhuru is not vying for any seat. He doesn't want to be president. He's already president.
He doesn't need this to push him in terms of popularity.
No. He doesn't need it. He doesn't need it. So when he says it, he must have been advised that it is possible. So why are we having this long, lengthy discussion?
Careful, CT. Also, with the electricity bills going down, he was advised by an eminent group of persons as well that this thing is possible and went ahead to announce to the nation.
You know something?
So
I actually believe these things were and are doable. Okay? It is when you hear of the state, when people talk about state capture, I think.
There goes City with his more Kenya from the pocket.
Yes, precisely. It isn't idle talk. It is a situation where individuals, groupings within this particular country who seem to have a way of twisting and turning things to the... It's not that there'll be no subsidy. No. If you talk about politics and political interference, my take is when you see such a hitch, somebody's negotiating somewhere.
Someone is taking advantage of something.
They've taken but the opportunity has presented itself. They're negotiating something for themselves and figuring, okay, now...
Maybe that's the entire design, City. That everything up to an announcement, up to a meeting in State House is part of what has been designed to benefit someone.
My friend, if we were to take that argument to its logical conclusion, then what you're saying would lend itself to a lot of weight.
The president, through the spokesperson, Ednah, yesterday said, effective immediately, the 2 kg maize flour shall retail in the price of 100 bob, down from 210. They also, enumerated some of the things that they've done so far to alleviate the food crisis in the country. The recent subsidy of 118 billion shillings that was signed by the president so that we can remain at 193 for petrol as opposed to 209 bob for petrol. Reduction of cooking gas prices to 3,000 bob. And then we're also looking back into January, the 15% reduction in cost of electricity, all those things, as they're saying, this is what we're doing. We are addressing the current crisis, economic crisis. Let's see. City, what are you looking at?
I'm looking at a very bizarre story here. The story comes from a place in Murang'a County called Maragua. And there is land in an area called Midhiini. It's an MITH with 2 I's and then NI. Okay? It is land that was in the distant past that we refer to as the colonial times, owned by white settlers who then moved. But then there are people who live on that land and do not have title deeds, and they're called squatters. The problem with this piece of land is a very odd one. The people who are called squatters, but this particular land we're talking about is 7,000 acres. It's not 2 acres. But there are those who lay claim that that land belongs to them. And they constantly harass these supposed squatters. Now, the story talks about the number of times the squatters have gone to either the land commission or to authorities concerned. And the one thing they keep being asked to provide is evidence that they actually own the land. Now, if you're a squatter, that's the whole point. You can't be a squatter and yet you have a title deed. You can't squat the title deed.
No.
If you're squatting, it means you don't have a title deed.
Yes.
All right? Or you can be called a squatter because you don't have one. Now, this is something that has been unresolved now, not for, my friend, not for 2 days, not for 3 days. It's unresolved for a very, very long time. And I wonder, in this day and age, how do you have people who call that particular place their home, preferring to sleep in the bushes? This story is actually on page 2 of the Star, rather than in their own homes, because people will come harassing you, look for you, beat you up. The story narrates how a 70-year-old woman was found burnt on her bed after she was tied to that particular bed.
What?
A 70-year-old woman burnt in her house, tied to her bed.
Eish.
Among the people who are referred to as a squatter. Now, I have to ask the question, what is so difficult about resolving such an issue? Because the chief of this particular area seems to support those who want these squatters out.
Yeah.
Now, we do have laws in this country that actually protect squatters. I think it's a 7-year rule, if I'm not wrong. If you've occupied a piece of land for a certain length of time, then the law allows you to have some claim and some ownership. Now, these are not people who've been there for 2 years or 3 years or 5 years or 10 years. They've been there for more. It's generational. People have their fathers who live on that land. Some had their grandfathers living on that land.
Yeah.
Now, I'm asking the question, how come that this hasn't been regularized?
Sorted out.
More importantly, this particular area must have an MP, must have an MCA. This is why you elect leaders, so that if you can't reach those hallowed grounds and have your case championed for you, that's what they're supposed to do.
Okay, but are these people squatters or not? They are, because they don't have any legal claim to the land.
Yes, they do not have legal claim. The only claim
Those
they
that
have
claim to have legal claim to the land, do they demonstrate how they acquired it from the settlers?
It's all very vague. The last settler who was on that particular land was left in 1967. Okay? The white settler who had been on the land. All right? Now, it's unclear who then took over or who owned the land. It's unclear. This story is remarkable in that the lack of clarity on so many issues abound. There isn't clarity as to those who claim the land is theirs, how it is they claim, and what it is that they give as evidence that this is actually their land. Those who don't have any documentation or are fewer in number and who are referred to as squatters also don't have, and there's a lack of clarity as to how it is they got there and why it is they claim that actually that land is theirs. What is certain from history is that for white settlers who settled there, people who lived there had been removed.
Yep.
That one, there's clarity on that one. One doesn't have to dither or question it. The bigger question, should such things not then be the purview
of the National Land Commission?
Precisely.
Yeah, that's why it was established, to resolve such matters. And if you see it dragging on for this long, there must be very many underlying things that are taking place there.
There are.
Powerful forces. When you talk about, there is representation, yes, there are several members of parliament who have represented this region since since the settler left? 68?
No, 76.
Since 1976. There have been several members of parliament in this area. This is Kisumu.
Yes. This is
Maragua.
Maragua.
Yes. There have been several members of parliament who have represented
this area. Is that not
area.
where Kioni comes from?
He's in Daragwa.
Daragwa.
This is Maragua. Maragua is a different.
Maragua is in Muranga.
Is in Muranga.
And Daragwa is also in Muranga.
No,
where
Daragwa is in Nyandarua.
It's in Nyandarua. Okay. See?
Hiyo.
Sorted.
Iko na issue. Haya, another one.
Members of parastatal boards are to declare their wealth by November. Okay? Members of these boards will be compelled to reveal their wealth to the government by the end of November as the state steps up the fight against rampant corruption in public agencies. So this is going to sort that out. The move is part of government reforms driven by the National Treasury to enhance transparency in the running of parastatals at the board level and to reduce conflict of interest where the members influence procurement decisions to their benefit or that of their proxies. The IMF has been pushing for reforms at the state-owned entities to seal loopholes that have led to a monetary hemorrhage to parastatals, which has deepened their dependence on government funding. The Mwongozo Code of Governance for State Corporations does not require board members to declare their wealth, but encourages them to disclose any conflict of interest. However, the Treasury told IMF that by the end of November 2022, we will take concrete actions to ensure that the state corporation board members comply with the presentation of their asset declaration. Treasury last year disclosed that 18 parastatals alone owe lenders 1.3 trillion shillings that Kenyans could be made to repay through hefty taxes in case they fail to meet their obligations. In the budget policy statement for 2022-2023, Treasury revealed that the firms have accumulated 343 billion shillings in commercial loans from banks, 664 billion lent by the government, and require bailouts of 211 billion to stay afloat. So all of that was part of that report that they were giving to the IMF. But the thing here that we are seeing is that in parastatal boards, folks are going to have to say how much they're worth.
It's important.
Yes.
Yes.
But
you go to the board, you first of all, but you're telling someone in secrecy. Nobody in the public domain will let you know.
What I find strange about these things is yes, such pronouncements will be made, but will they be acted on?
To what effect, anyway?
Yes. So
but maybe at some point, if you're now being investigated, you'll be told at this particular point in time, you told us you are worth this much. Now we establish that you are worth this much. ESCC have something to take to court.
They do. Window dressing.
They have a window.
This is window dressing.
ESCC have something else they've taken to court. 4 officials at the National Treasury have had their accounts frozen over alleged theft of 177 million shillings. Remember December 2020? We were talking about COVID here.
Yes.
Yes? Si tulikuwa tu hapa.
Yes.
Between then and now, somebody has amassed, just about 70 million shillings in their accounts.
70.
And their salary is about 70,000 shillings per month.
So in 2.5 years,
yes,
some 70 million is sitting there pretty.
Multiply that by 1,000. 70 by 1,000, 70 million.
70 million, yeah.
The Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission claims Robert Murage, Faith Kiptis, Esther Wangeshi, and Doris Simiyu, who earn between 41,000 and 188,000 shillings per month, devised an elaborate plan to divert public funds to their personal accounts. They allege that the 4 embezzled 177.6 million shillings between 2020 and this year, but that by the time the ESCC got intelligence about the theft, the 4 had only 37 million shillings in their bank accounts. According to the agency, the 4 received large sums of money disguised as extraneous and facilitation allowances. For example, Faith Kiptis, who is a principal finance and budget officer, is the biggest beneficiary, having received 79 million shillings between December 2020 and March this year. Her average monthly salary is 71,000 shillings, which, if you just add that, comes to 2.13 million shillings for the period of investigation. That's between January 2020 and June this year. But by the time the investigation started, her accounts at KCB and Equity had a balance of 8.7 million shillings. Wangeshi, the ESCC claims, is a deputy internal auditor general with a monthly salary of 188,000 shillings. She had amassed an alleged 53 million shillings within that short auditing time. Preliminary analysis revealed that she made M-Pesa withdrawals in batches averaging 100,000 shillings, 50,000 shillings, and check withdrawals of amount between 500,000 and 900,000, leaving a balance of 8.5 million as a time worked. So 53 million shillings minus 8 million, the rest gone. Simiyu, an accountant with an average monthly salary of 59,000 shillings and a cumulative 2-year pay of 1.7 million, is claimed to have received 20 million shillings. His account has a balance of 8.9 million. Murage, who earns 41,000, got 24 million shillings according to the ESCC, but had a bank balance of 11 million. Lady Justice Esther Maina said, freeze their accounts. EACC, investigate.
Check it out.
Mm.
Cause for concern, cause for eyebrow.
You know, it just shows you every day EACC and the Asset Recovery Agency are.
There actually
doing
is
things.
no question that they are working.
Yes, yes.
There is no question that they are trying to do the best they can under the circumstances. But what, it's mind-boggling. Is there any department, is there any ministry in this country where you do not find? It's just that these agencies aren't adequately funded.
Yeah.
So they are limited as to what they can do at any given point in time. But my friend, it's everywhere. Just when you think you can get your head out of the water to breathe, bloop, and you want to God Almighty.
There's another one.
Yes.
It's like the landmines that you try to fill. And as you fill this one, another one pops
goes
up,
off.
another one goes off.
But bear in mind, it's over a period of time, which means it is something that is entrenched in public service.
Totally.
It's entrenched.
Totally. We are talking about just December and March this year. And if these allegations were true, imagine how much. This is 177 million shillings by 4 officers in just about a year.
How many more?
Okay. By the time someone has 59 million shillings in their account in a year.
And this is what has been
And it is
discovered.
sitting in their account. They've already done shopping.
They have done things.
This, they've done this. This is the one that has
37
remained.
million is change, which has remained.
Yes.
37 million.
Yeah.
And the person's salary, as we're told, 37. Yeah, but.
Yeah. Kenya, my friends. Kenya. City, a final story before we go to the top of the hour.
It is not something I'm going to read, but something that we ought to perhaps look at in the coming days,
yes,
even into next week. This issue of WHO and what they wish to do. Jaindi Kisero wrote an article yesterday, and the article outlined certain matters of a similar nature. How the UN complex came to be in Gigiri, okay, and what it has brought with it. WHO having a hub here that represents the continent would have similar effects.
A research hub.
A research hub, yes. Something like Corona comes about, something else comes up, you will not need to go to Geneva. It'll be managed here. I'm simply saying, when you have cases such as this one, we need to look at some of these things in greater detail and probably discuss why it is such things are important.
Okay.
Put the politics aside and look at the benefits that such things would bring about.
Okay.
Yeah.
You know, nobody has questioned the benefits of having a WHO center there.
No, they haven't.
Or all the others that are here. We have ISIPE, we have all the... Nobody has questioned that.
No, what I'm saying is people may not really understand
the importance of having it here.
Yes.
Okay. On the other hand, what is the issue at hand here? The issue at hand is the process of hosting them around the KU land.
Yes.
That also is important.
Subject worthy of discussion and worthy of balancing and asking, was this the way to have gone about this? And is this the best way of achieving something that you want? And
how can we, if we realize that you've gone this far and you missed a step, why not just step back, correct the steps, and
then
get this thing? Because, like you're saying, we need this WHO. We can't send the wrong signal to them that they start looking for somewhere else.
No. It will not be in our interest. No,
we need them. We need the facility.
Yes, we do.
It'll change everything around Molem, Ruiro, and that side.
Man,
and this other.
It will transform it completely.
Yes.
Anyway.
Kenya's biggest conversation. We're always here to look at the papers, to look at what's happening around us and around the world, give an honest opinion of what we feel and what we think about it. And then we also invite guests to come so we can discuss things further. So 10 years ago, the Environment and Land Relations Court of the High Court, Land Relations Division of the High Court was established. It's 10 years later, and we want to talk to the presiding judge of this division, Justice Oscar Angote. Hashtag Justice Thursdays. What is the vision towards enhancing service delivery in land and environment-related matters? Justice Angote will be here with us in the next hour. Keep it here for more on that. Remember, elections Bilanoma with only 18 days to go. Look at your neighbor. Look at them as they are your neighbor today, as they will be your neighbor on the 10th of August. Good morning.
The latest news from around the world. 94.4 Spice FM.
Good morning, this is Nizu. I'm Dennis Aseto. President Uhuru Kenyatta's hit back at members of the political class whom he accused of injecting politics into the maize flour crisis currently facing the country. The head of state said a section of leaders in the country has a tendency to manipulate the unga crisis in every election in an attempt to gain political mileage.
As I've observed in our country, indeed every election in our country has attracted an unga crisis. And in fact, at times it seems to be engineered, a connection between unga and its high price and elections. There is an obvious trend between the manner the price of unga goes up and the tempo taken up during elections. But why do I say this? I say this because in July of 2012, months before the March 2013 election, the price of a packet of a 2-kilogram package of unga shot up from 70 shillings to 130 shillings. Therefore, making my administration, when it came into office, the first item we had to address was to intervene to bring down this price as an urgent priority.
President Kenyatta reiterated that despite the criticism by some leaders, especially those who have been part of the Jubilee administration, the record shows that his government has relentlessly sought solutions to pertinent issues affecting the country with or without the elections.
Today, once again, months to the August 2022 election, the price of unga has, as per previous, shot up again. It has moved from a price of about 100 Kenya shillings to 205 Kenya shillings currently. So the national question, ladies and gentlemen, that all of us must pose from this trend is it a coincidence that we have an unga crisis just before every election? Is this the result of a market dynamic, or is it a deliberate outcome? This question, ladies and gentlemen, we have to put forward. We must ask ourselves, and we must put to bed.
And you will be buying a 2 kg packet of unga at 100 shillings from previous 205 and a food subsidy program announced by President Uhuru Kenyatta. In a deal with millers, the government will have forgo billions in taxes collected as railway development levy and import declaration fee charged on all imported maize, which are being suspended with immediate effect.
My administration has been engaging for the last few days with all milling companies registered by the Agricultural Food Authority, and as a consequence issued a legal notice under the hand of the Cabinet Secretary for the National Treasury. And through this notice, and effective immediately, number one, the railway development levy on all imported maize shall stand suspended. Number two, the import declaration fee, IDF, on all imported maize is also hereby suspended. Maize flour shall retail across the entire territory of the Republic of Kenya at the price of Kenya shillings 100, down from Kenya shillings 205.
Government officials from the National Treasury and the Ministry of Agriculture were locked in intense negotiations for 5 days in a bid to lower maize flour prices, which President Kenyatta has attributed to drought, locust invasion, logistical challenges as a result of COVID-19 and the war in Ukraine, which has reduced the supply of cereals in the world market. And President Uhuru Kenyatta has eyed 7 newly appointed Court of Appeal judges to serve the nation with fidelity, integrity and without fear or favor. Speaking shortly after witnessing the swearing-in of the judges, the head of state asked them to deliver justice in a speedy, accessible and consistent manner.
I, Aroni Abida Ali, Judge of the Court of Appeal, do swear.
I, Genye Grace Wangoi, Judge of the Court of Appeal,
Protich, Judge of the Court of Appeal, do hereby swear.
Do also the very best as you go out to carry out your duties, service your clients, the people of Kenya, as you shall all do, in the name of justice, which our country believes in and our people entrust in your great hands.
Now, the fight against terrorism in the country has received a major boost after the government, in partnership with Britain, opened the first anti-terrorism police unit Coast Regional Headquarters in Mombasa. The headquarters were unveiled alongside a new police station to be known as Mombasa Police Station.
While we hold terrorists terrorists in these facilities, we are also able to process them through the justice chain here. That keeps the population out there safer, gives us an opportunity to expeditiously deal with their challenges, and also ensure that cases involving terror and terrorist activities do not linger around in our justice system. We live in a globalized environment.
This is Newswire. Dennis Alseto. Good morning.
SpiceFM, Nakuru.
In and outbound traffic continues on Jogo Road this morning, and we're looking at that getting into the city. Landis Road not looking too bad today. There's an option for you to get in without too much of an issue. Haile Selassie will probably get busier as we go along. Langata Road not just yet. Past 7 o'clock, and it doesn't look like traffic is going to be too much of an issue, at least not for now. But we are seeing some action on the Thika Superhighway today, and it's pretty heavy as you're going out through towards the Pangani Underpass. Coming out of Westlands, not too bad. That expressway exit issue hasn't really started this morning, and hopefully we can keep things just that way through today. Let's talk and see what happens when in half an hour we'll be in traffic hour proper and try to keep things moving. Talk to us, SpiceFM KE on Twitter.
This is the Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Okoh, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latiff, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down.
7 minutes after 7,
this
Kenya's
is the
biggest
Situation
conversation
Room,
enters
the
the second
only way
hour.
to
Very
start
good
your
morning to you and welcome to this show if you're just joining us. It's Thursday, the 21st day of July 2022. That means it's hashtag Justice Thursdays. We have a judge in the room. Before we welcome the judge, let's hear the day's proverb.
Our proverbs for today and tomorrow and Monday come from the country of Zimbabwe. A grilled locust is better than no soup.
A grilled locust is better than
no soup.
No soup.
And we established that it's an insect.
It's not a bird.
No. Even if it flies, it's an insect.
No, thank you very much.
And then that's bzzz.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. A grilled one is better than
no soup.
From Zimbabwe.
Yes.
You said Zimbabwe was called what?
The what now?
Zimbabwe was called? Rhodesia.
Rhodesia.
Forget it.
Palambalabo, what did you say before?
No.
Mashonaland. Matabeleland and Mashonaland.
Yes.
That's what they were called. Forget about this Rhodesia story. Skip it.
This man did history at some point. They were named after the people who actually inhabited that particular land.
Yes. Yeah. It's a good one, City.
Thank you.
Brush your teeth twice a day with Aquafresh Fresh Gel, the secret to long-lasting fresh breath, strong teeth, and healthy gums.
Justice Oscar Angote is the presiding judge of the Environment and Land Court. This is a division of the High Court, is it? Or is it? It's a superior court.
It's a superior court. It's an independent,
superior court.
It's one of the 5 superior courts.
Very good. Justice, welcome to Kenya's biggest conversation. Welcome to Justice Thursdays.
Thank you very much for having me here. And thank you for the listeners and the viewers. Let me say hi to all of them and to my colleagues who are preparing to go to court and serve the people of Kenya. Thank you very much.
Do you promise that everything you say here shall be the truth and nothing but the truth?
It shall be the truth. It shall be the truth.
Judge, Environment and Land Court is 10 years old now. So tell us about the thinking behind the establishment of this as a superior court. It's established by a piece of legislation. What is the thinking behind this? And tell us about the last 10 years.
Let me start with the first issue, the thing behind the establishment of the court. At independence, all the matters relating to land and environment were being dealt by the magistrates and the High Court, depending with the legislation under which the pieces of land were registered. And those pieces of legislation are the ones which were guiding the parties in which particular court they're supposed to file their cases. So we had the High Court and the magistrates dealing with all land disputes, amongst other disputes. Now, this did not actually work well because, remember, to independence, we were having so much in terms of adjudication of land, titling, and also we had the colonial titles together with the grants which the government was allocating to people. And therefore, there were so many disputes around that particular area. And the issue of the delays and the many disputes that arose led to the creation of a specialized court known as the Land Disputes Tribunal. It was actually a tribunal which was formed at every divisional level so that Kenyans can go to those particular tribunals and have their disputes heard expeditiously. And these tribunals were actually headed by elders within divisions. And it was hoped that the disputes are going to be settled quickly. This tribunal had very specific mandate. It was only supposed to deal with boundary disputes and, of course, issues of trespass. But that did not also solve the issue of delays in terms of land disputes. And when we had the Ndungu Commission in the year 2003, the Commission recommended that we need to have a specialized land titles tribunal because what happened is that the tribunal was actually not doing what it was supposed to do. It was even overstepping its mandate in terms of dealing with the titles, which the law prohibited it from doing. So the Ndungu Commission recommended for the establishment of land disputes a land titles tribunal. But when Kenyans had this conversation during the constitution-making process, they say, let's just have a court which will deal with environment and land court. And this particular court should have the status of the High Court so that it doesn't feel that it is a much lesser court in terms of encouraging Kenyans to go before it and deal with those specialized issues quickly. And that was why in the 2010 Constitution, one of the 5 superior courts was the Environment and Land Court, which is a court of the same status with the High Court. So the thinking, just to answer your question, the thing behind the court was that this is a court which should be formed so that it can expeditiously deal with the land disputes in a very specialized and systematic matter. It was supposed to be a court with what we call competent, comprehensive, and centralized jurisdiction, so that it was supposed to be a one-stop shop for all land disputes.
All matters of land.
And it was expected, and we still have those expectations, that the court was supposed to deal with all the land problems that Kenyans have been facing. So that was the reasoning.
Does it mean that for matters of environment and land, you don't have to start at the magistracy? You come straight to this court?
Now, that was the initial conception. When you read Article 162(2)(b), the court was supposed to deal with disputes relating to environment and land court. However, it was realized that magistrates are found in each and every corner of the country. In 2016, the law was amended because the court could not just deal with all manner of disputes. You know, you are talking about boundary disputes and all these other small disputes. So the law was amended in 2016. The Magistrates Court Act and the Environment Land Court Act was amended, giving jurisdiction to magistrates to deal with land disputes of a particular value. So magistrates can actually deal with land matters whose value does not exceed 20 million. Any dispute whose value exceeds 20 million has to be heard by the Environment and Land Court as the first port of call. So that position changed in 2016. But between 2012, when the court was first operationalized, to 2016, the court was dealing with all matters, and it was impossible. Because, as I will tell you, we started over with only 15 judges in 2012. And right now we are 51 judges. So you can imagine how 51 judges were supposed to deal with all land disputes, and that's why the laws are amended. So actually the magistrates now have jurisdiction to deal with land disputes and environmental disputes whose value is less than 20 million Kenya shillings.
Okay. So what did you do with the cases that were of value below 20 million after 2017? Did you now push them down to magistrates?
We did not, because we realized that if we did that, we are going to even create a chaotic situation, because these are Kenyans who have been waiting. The cases have been filed in our court, and then you all of a sudden wake up and tell them, go back to the magistrate. So we had practice directions to the effect that cases which had already been filed can continue in the Environment and Land Court. However, new cases should be able to be filed in the law court, except where the parties agreed that because of the distance, take us back to the magistrate's court. So where there was that consent, we will transfer most of those matters to the lower court. But the policy that the court took was that any matter which had been filed before 2016 should actually continue being heard in the Environment and Land Court, so as to save the Kenyans this back and forth situation that they found themselves in at that particular point in time.
So which kind of cases then? I mean, you said any land cases that exceed a certain amount in terms of money. So what kind of cases then? What's the stuff of the cases that comes to court? Individuals disputing over the ownership? Are we talking about entities taking over land in succession? Are we talking about inheritance? What scope then?
Yes, the jurisdiction of the court is very limited to deal with what we call land use, land occupation, and titles. Now, it does not mean that any dispute which touches on land will come to the Environment and Land Court. For example, succession matters don't come to the Land Court, they go to the High Court. Because that is not a dispute on land use, occupation, and title. That's a dispute relating to distribution of property among the family members. So we only deal with what we call land use, titling, and occupation. The other example which I can give you is in relation to commercial transactions. When you're talking about charges, when people charge their property for purposes of getting loans, that one is a commercial transaction. It does not come to the Environment and Land Court. It goes to the commercial division of the High Court. So our jurisdiction is very specific, but more or less it deals with almost all land disputes, except probably those two that I've mentioned, succession and commercial transactions.
So what is land use? I mean, it sounds obvious, but it could be that we are thinking something totally different. What is land use, really?
Land use, if I can simplify it, it just means that there is a tenure system whereby you are given a piece of land for a specific purpose, either agricultural, either for commercial purposes, or you are a tenant. So that is use. So when you are contesting, let's say, a tenancy issue, you are talking about a use of land, or agriculture, you are saying, I'm the one who should be farming this piece of land. That is use. Or you are saying this building is supposed to be used for a studio. So that is land use. So that's why we are talking about, is there a dispute about the use of that land? So it comes to our court. Then the second aspect is occupation. Who is in occupation of that land? So that's a dispute which will come to our court. Then the last and the most important, and probably the one that's litigated upon mostly, is titles. Who has a proper title?
Who has the genuine
title?
Who
has a genuine title? You have 10 titles. I'm the one to decide who has a genuine title.
So the perennial and everlasting issue of squatters in this country then falls squarely in your court.
It does, because that's occupation and titling.
Right. So then how then has this been... So when you say to me, it seems as though it traverses those three things of use, occupation, and titles, because it's a big issue. You have communities who have been deemed to be squatters, but have lived easily 50 years in a particular place, and then one day somebody comes along and says, "Hold on a minute, we actually have the title to this land, in as much as you've been living there." So, I mean, it seems that it's something that then needs to be dealt with delicately, but then who then brings such cases to court? And when you talk about land use where squatters use this land, do they really then have rights when the owners come to court to claim back their land? Do squatters actually have rights that can be disputed in court?
They do have rights in certain instances, and when such an issue comes before a judge, you look at the circumstances, you look at the facts, because the law will always guide you on how to apply the facts which have been placed before you. So squatters do have rights. Mm-hmm. And those rights have to be looked at against the rights of the title owners. Okay. One of the rights which the squatters have is the right of if a squatter has been on the land for more than 12 years, and as a title holder you've not done anything, the law actually allows that squatter to come to court and say that I have been on this land for 12 years. The owner has not done anything within those 12 years, and therefore I'm entitled to this particular title. And the law allows the court to make that particular declaration. So squatters do have rights, and we look at the circumstances, we look at the evidence, we look at the facts. Is this a professional squatter who is just moving in and out to get a title, or is this a genuine squatter? So all those facts are actually applied by the judge, and then you look at what does the law say in terms of the rights of a squatter. So they do have rights in certain instances, not always.
Who's a genuine squatter?
A genuine squatter is somebody who has been on a piece of land for a very long period of time, and you need to look at the circumstances under which he came on that land. And there are so many circumstances that can make somebody actually to squat on another person's land. And the most often example that I can give is if you sell a piece of land to person B, and you transfer that land to that person B. And probably when you are selling that land, there was somebody who was already living on this particular piece of land. And this person B does not do anything to enforce his rights of evicting the person who was on that land. Either you invited that person on that land, but when you sold it, the person who bought the land did not evict
inherited the person in the land.
Exactly.
And allowed them to
continue living on that land. The law says you have slept on your rights. You should have done something within that particular period. And the other example that I can give is where you have people coming on a piece of land, especially where we have absentee landlords. We have landlords who have land and they disappeared many years ago. And you are, hey, I can see a piece of land here, and you put a small structure there and you continue living there. And this absentee landlord does not come to reclaim his land for 12 years. The law says if he comes after 12 years, too bad for him. That's the law. That's the law, and you sleep on your rights. You don't recover your land. There's nothing you can. Imeenda kabisa.
So then there are very many people who are squatters, then who already have been there for more than 12 years. It sounds like they have automatic right to that piece of land.
Yes, they do have that right, but that right has to be sanctioned by the court. That's why they have to come to court and say we've been on this land for this particular period of time. The owner of the land has not done anything for the past 12 years. And then we look at the facts, because saying is one thing, and proving that we've been on that land for that period is another thing. So we have to weigh this particular assertion.
Your code deals with environment.
Yes.
what does the court consider to be under your purview? What qualifies to be environment?
In environment, when you look at the definition of environment, it's so wide. Environment is almost everything, because even land itself is environment. But when it comes to the issues that come to our court on a daily basis, we are talking about when you are putting land into some kind of use, which factors have you considered? Which environmental factors have you considered for you to put that piece of land into use? And we have laws governing how land use is supposed to be implemented for purposes of mitigating any environmental degradation. But just to answer your question, we are talking about environment. Talking about the issues of air, how we regulating the cleanness of our air, about water, about the issue to do with waste management and disposal. But more importantly, and the case that we deal with on a daily basis is this land use. Are you using it in a sustainable manner as required by the law? Have you complied with all the requirements in terms of taking measures to mitigate any environmental degradation that may arise from that particular land use? However, we still have cases where we deal purely with environmental issues. For example, the issue to do with the river pollution. People come to court and say there's a particular industry here which is polluting a river, or there's this waste disposal which is not being done in accordance with the law, and at the end of the day, it's affecting the soil or the air or the water. So environment, as it were, is very wide, and we deal with those issues as they arise.
So is that why, for instance, if you were to put up a structure in a city such as this one, you would need some environmental approval before you can do so? Meaning an understanding that structure that you're going to put up complies with laws and regulations that are demanded of such a structure in such a place.
It's actually a requirement of the law that when you're putting up any kind of a structure, you must do what we call the environmental impact assessment. So that in that report, and we have experts who are supposed to do that, in that report you are saying these are the impacts that we expect with putting up this kind of a structure, and these are we are going to mitigate those particular impacts. And it's only on the basis of that report that the National Environmental Management Authority, NEMA, will give you a license. You must have a license. And NEMA will rely on that report to say that this structure will have these particular effects on the environment, but these are the measures that we are putting in place. If it's sewerage, you have to show how that sewerage system is going to operate. If it is air pollution, because construction, we have all manner of effluent and debris and all that. You must show how you are going to take care of that. So that's why I was saying when it comes to land use, you must be able to show NEMA that you've put in place measures to protect the environment. In development has to go hand in hand, and it's a constitutional requirement with the protection of the environment.
Thank you. That is clear. There's clarity. And one can definitely demonstrate and show that they will comply. Where my problem, the problem I have in my head comes in is, now, thereafter, the structure is put up. Does an organization, well, I shouldn't ask you this because you don't work for NEMA, but is there sufficient wherewithal to ensure that what was on paper is what actually then takes place after? Because complying with the rule so that you can put up the structure, yes, that is there. Why am I asking this? Because I get the impression that it's because of non-compliance that such cases end up in your court.
True. Very true. And there are many. Because you find that most of the time when developers get licenses, they actually don't comply, or they comply partially. And as a citizen, if you look at the law nowadays, anybody can move to court and say that this person is not complying with the conditions in the license, and in the process is polluting the environment. So that happens oftenly. And now is a court to look at whether indeed those conditions have been complied with and not. And the court can actually stop any construction which is being undertaken without complying with the conditions in the license. And that's where now the environmental issue comes in. Because when you are talking about compliance, you are talking about, as you develop, are you also looking at the requirements,
the conditions of your license?
Exactly.
All very interesting, Judge. Let's take a break, and then we'll continue the conversation shortly. Justice Oscar Angote, presiding judge of the Environment and Land Court. He is here today with us, Justice Thursday, to talk about the court celebrating 10 years since it was first established 10 years ago, 2012. This was in November, so you'll be celebrating your 10 years in November.
In November, exactly.
We'll be talking about that and how you want to commemorate. Kuna keki, kuna fireworks,
zote zipo.
Kuna shamba, utapeana kila mtu kaplot, eighth. You know, and all those coming up. But Judge, let's also tell you about Pocket by Mozilla. Ndu, please tell the judge.
I think this would be great, because I know that there's documentation that you're often referring to on a daily basis, just because of your profession. And so sometimes you get lost in terms of, all right, so where did I find that particular thing? Where do I have to go back to, whether it's on the internet or such? Well, Pocket by Mozilla is actually a great tool to use, because what it allows you to do is to save all of those things that you might bump into for later. So you can always use it as reference later. Store it in your pocket, and then you're able to come back and, read that article. You're able to listen to that particular recording. You're able to, get that reference for use later. It's downloadable on the Google Play Store and Apple App Store.
That's
and
great.
You can have that as reference for later.
That's great.
We'll download it. We'll help you download it.
Thanks
as we
a
take
lot.
this break. This one is not really a dispute that should come before you, but now that you're here and you're a judge, let me tell you about this man.
Yes.
CT. Him and I, as my big brother, we do business together. And there are things that we do together. So we have a land that we own together. So what happened, Judge, is CT came to me and told me, Eric, this beautiful piece of land is going for 6 million shillings. Very nice. Told me where it is. Told me who the neighbors are. You know the way you said, on this other side, kuna judge so and so. This other side ni general so and so.
To entice you.
Na kuna bypass
Kuna maji.
Kuna maji pale. Beautiful. I said, let's go ahead and buy. I trust the man. I always trust him. I gave him the money. My share, 50%, 3 million shillings. He introduced me to the person who's selling the land, a man called Joseph. And we signed and shook hands. Turns out later, Judge, this man was the owner of the land all along. Joseph was just a proxy. Now, is that a dispute that we bring to you?
Guy had I'll listen to it.
Yes. Was the land not there?
It was there.
Did it have an owner?
It did.
Yes.
Yeah.
After all, there was no heir.
Where is the problem?
Was there a willing buyer?
Yes.
Was there consideration?
Were the neighbors as stated? Yes. Was there a river? Yes.
See, you sold me your own land, and you
said that you were also bringing 50%.
He bought the land for 1 million shillings. I gave 3 million shillings for 50% of that land.
Excuse me. I already owned the land. I gave him a deal. Ask him what the value of that land is now.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
Standard Group's Farm Kenya initiative is the umbrella entity for all agriculture-related channels, activities and investments. The media platforms under the Farm Kenya initiative include the Smart Harvest Weekly Pullout in the Saturday Standard, KTN Farmers TV, a 24-hour agribusiness TV station, Maisha Kilimo, a weekly agriculture show on Radio Maisha, AgriTalk on SpiceFM's morning show The Situation Room, and Grind na Agribiz on Vibes Radio morning show Morning Vibes. Find us online at www.farmers.co.ke, an integrated website that creates and aggregates agri-content, hosts a digital marketplace, and wide range of agri-data. Other platforms include specialized events such as the annual Mkulima Expo, quarterly Farmers Kenya breakfast and dedicated social media platforms at Farm Kenya 254. Farm Kenya, working to secure your growth.
All right, Nairobi this morning, the sun is peeking through those clouds. It's currently at 14 degrees. We'll go to highs of 26 and lows of 17 today. Let's look into Nakuru, where we'll see highs of 22, and looking into Eldoret, where we'll see highs of 21 today. All right, looking into Kisumu, rain coming down at some point, but cloudy conditions for now. We'll go to highs of 26, and we'll go to highs of 27 in Kakamega. We'll see highs of 29 in Mombasa, where the rain is coming down still, and Malindi is a wet morning as well. We'll go to highs of 29. Out into Kampala, it is clear. We'll see highs of 26. We'll see highs of 30 in Dar es Salaam. 10 degrees in Johannesburg this morning, and clear skies in Lagos at 24. Kinshasa, we'll see highs of 28. All right, traffic continues in most parts of the city this morning, but today has not been so too bad of a morning. Traffic in the CBD is where you'll see most of it today. Coming off a thicker superhighway, that was thick from at about 7 o'clock, and that continues in certain parts. Jogo Road looks like the busiest for now. Lunga, a bit of something here and there, and we'll also see a build-up on Langata Road, but not too bad at the moment. Looks like traffic hour started later than usual today, but we should be able to keep things well managed. What's going on where you are? Talk to us this morning in order to keep things moving. Let's talk on SpiceFM KE on Twitter.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right.
23 minutes
94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
This conversation on YouTube and Facebook and on Spice FM. Eric Latiff, Ndu Okoh and CT Muga, with Justice Oscar Angote, presiding judge of the Environment and Land Court, celebrating 10 years of this court, the gains, the challenges, the lessons on to the next 10 years. And Judge, maybe we just start from that. Can you just mention some of the key gains or some of the landmark decisions that have come out of this court that have then impacted the community?
Thank you very much. This court has been there for the last 10 years, and it has done so much in terms of resolving the ever-evolving land disputes in this country. And the judges have really worked around the clock to resolve those disputes. And the record of the court shows that actually it's resolving so many disputes. Now, on the issue of landmark cases, I don't want to specifically talk about particular cases, but the court has dealt generally, and in terms of issues which affect people. We have dealt mostly with the environmental issues that affect the Nairobians, if I can just talk about Nairobi, because this is where we've had so many challenges when it comes to environmental disputes. And one of the disputes, we all know, we had the dump site in Dandora. The court was very firm about that, and it said that the people of Dandora and the environments need to be protected, and that dump site need to be moved somewhere else where we will not have people mingling together with all manner of with the waste. And for me, that was a landmark case because we had to balance between the health of the people and where we are supposed to dump our waste. We had another landmark case whereby the court was very specific that when people are traveling from Nairobi to Western, they need to have places where they can actually go and answer to the calls of nature. And there were directions that indeed we should have toilets. The government should be able to put toilets along the road so that we are able to have those people using buses and matatus to use those particular facilities. And of course, that's an ongoing conversation. I think the government is implementing that particular directive, though slowly, but I'm very sure that that's going to happen. The other issue that the court has dealt with, and this is an issue which is in the Court of Appeal, which I really don't want to discuss about, but we all know about the lead case in Mombasa. And the court, the Environment Land Court, was very firm about it, and it's an issue which is still under conversation as to whether the court was right to say that the people in that particular area should be compensated or not. So those are just some of the few issues that I can say have really had an impact on the society as a whole, insofar as the decisions of the court are concerned.
The interesting bit about the three examples that you've given, Judge, it's where members of a community feel that their rights are not being upheld. And they come to court, and the court is then able to make a determination and take a position on whether their rights are being violated or not. So it's not, people may think when you talk about the Environment and Land Court, it's when you have a dispute with somebody about purchasing a piece of land, about occupation of a piece of land. But then you're also talking about communities. If you feel that A, there's pollution, B, you've been denied access, let's say to a public beach, or C, the community is being denied access or the right to enjoy life peacefully, they can also come to court.
Yeah. In fact, when you look at the Constitution, Article 70, Sub-Article 3 is very clear that when it comes to environmental disputes, you don't have to show that you've been affected in any way. You don't have to prove that you've been injured. Anybody can move to court and say that I'm seeing a violation or a threat, and the person will be asking the court to make certain orders. And that article has really given Kenyans a leeway, especially in environmental disputes, to come to court, to the Environment and Land Court, and say that I'm seeing certain violation in terms of environmental issues, and therefore I want the court to make particular pronouncements either against the government or against whoever is violating the environment for the greater good of the country and the globe. Because environmental issues, we always say, do not affect an individual. They affect all of us. Yeah. And therefore, the Constitution has now gone out of its way. Because initially we had the problems of what we call the locus, whereby you'll be asked, inakuhusu namna gani? If the river is in the river, you are in Western, how does that river concern you? Yes. But nowadays, that is not the issue. We don't ask you, how are you injured? All we say, give us evidence, and we'll give the appropriate orders. So it has really opened up space, and the court keeps on making determinations. And these determinations have also been encouraging people to come and seek those particular orders for the better benefit of the public and the globe.
You know, land issues have always been referred to as very emotive issues in this country.
Yes, they are.
And as the population of this country increases, unfortunately, the land mass doesn't increase with the population. It stays constant. This may not be a matter that directly relates to your court, but it's a land issue. How is it that we still have certain parts of this country where people do not have title deeds?
Yes, we still have certain sections of the country where we've not done titling, and titling is a process. Now, this process is led mostly by the executive, because when you look at the Land Adjudication Act, which is the act that actually provides a framework for titling, you will find that the process has to be commenced by the executive, whereby you start by mapping the area, and then bringing in what we call the land committees, the village elders to determine the boundaries, and then the process goes on until the titling is done. So I can attribute to the absence of titling in certain parts of the country to the political. There's a political question because it has to be started by the ministry. It's actually a policy issue that we now want to do titling in this particular county, and therefore there must be that particular decision at that particular point, and then the process will begin. It's a little bit tedious because you see when you're talking about titling, you really have to consider so many things, including the interest, because you determine now the interests of individuals. But that will not be a problem going forward because after 2010, you realize that now we have what we are calling the community land. So that communities are now being told by the law to come together as a community and register even land as a community and be able to get a title as a community. Because the problem that we've been having in some parts of the country is that certain communities will prefer to have their land remain as community land. They don't want this individualization of titles, especially in the pastoralist communities. They will prefer that the entire division or county should just be considered a community piece of land, and then you have what we call the groups being registered, maybe in terms of clans and such things. So the challenge, just to answer your question, the challenge mostly was the issue of certain communities preferring to remain with their land as a community and not to individualize those particular titles. But secondly, it is a political question which has to be commenced at a certain level.
Now, you mentioned that there is a conference. There are some discussions that you are planning to have in the not too distant future.
You are very right, and that is one of the main reasons why I really wanted to talk to the Kenyans. The Environment Land Court was operationalized in 2012. The first batch of judges, the 15 judges, were appointed on 1st of October, but they started working formally in early November 2012. So the court is going to commemorate 10 years. Now, this commemoration we have a theme for this particular commemoration. We are calling it ELC at 10, 10 years of protecting land and environment. And we are acknowledging as a court that we've had challenges, serious challenges. We've had gaps. Now we want Kenyans to come together in this particular commemoration function and discuss on exactly the achievements that the court has had for those 10 years, the challenges that the court has had, the gaps that are existing. Now, this particular conference brings together the two main ministries, that's the Ministry of Lands and Fiscal Planning and the Ministry of Environment and Forestry. We are bringing together all the magistrates who deal with environment and land matters, the tribunals. We have so many tribunals under the court. Then we have our stakeholders, whom we call the court users. These court users, we want them to come and tell us what exactly are we doing as a court for purposes of either improving or coming up with the new measures to be able to serve the Kenyans better. Now, it will be a plenary conference. It will not be a hotel conference. It will be a plenary conference because we want to go out there and meet with the people. Yeah. And we are going to have it in Kisumu City. So it's going to be a plenary conference whereby we'll have break-up sessions and round-table sessions with the specific thematic areas, whereby we are inviting even academia and the media and the politicians so that we discuss particular thematic areas for purposes of the people telling us exactly how do we deal with those particular thematic areas. And we already have a few committees who are preparing what I can call what I can call the conference, the thematic areas, so that we are very specific on the issues that we want to discuss and the resolutions that we want to come out with. And to add on that, we also want to remind people that this court is not just a land court. You know, we are considered as if we are just a land court.
Land.
It's an environmental court, and there is a lot out here that is going on in terms of environmental degradation. So we want to enlighten Kenyans that we need also to deal with environmental issues. Before the conference in the first week of November, we are going to have what we are calling pre-conference activities in all the 36 counties where the court is located, whereby the judges and the magistrates are going to mingle with the people and grow trees, green rivers, green markets, green schools, and also have open days, so that people should be able to understand that indeed this court exists and this court functions in a particular way. So we are going to have those pre-conference activities before the real conference in the first week of November. And a few courts have already started their pre-conference activities because we really want to green this country. It's a green court, and we need to green the country, and we can only do that if we lead from the front. So we are calling upon most of our development partners, because they're the ones who are going to support us in this endeavor, so that we make this conference succeed and have firm resolutions on how we want to assist Kenyans in matters to do with the environment and land.
Right. Even as you look at that conference, I just wanted to look back on the issue of time. And you talked about some of the challenges that you would be discussing during this conference. But is time a challenge in the adjudication of some of these cases? We've seen in the general court system that some of these things actually do take a lot of time.
They do. In fact, that is the main challenge that we have had as a court. However, if you look at our reports now, we are moving from this period of 10 years where matters will be in court for 10 years or even more, up to now we are doing a turnaround of 3 years. So we are looking at having a turnaround of 1 year in the next 3 years. And those are some of the issues that we are discussing as a court. And we've put strategies in place, because even the Chief Justice has told us we need to have strategies in place to have a turnaround of a case to be 1 year. And we are actually working on that. If you look at the record that we now have in the court, we are moving towards the 1 year period. We are still doing a turnaround average of 3 years, but we are geared towards 1 year. And some of the strategies that we've put in place is we want every court file to have a date. You know, we've been having, you go to court and you are told this matter will be mentioned. You don't know when it will be had. So we want to have those particular issues dealt with, so that in the next 3 years, and I'm hoping that it's going to happen, because we are determined, we are going to have a turnaround of 1 year in terms of a dispute. It doesn't augur well when you are in court for 10 years or 20 years over land.
Because that is locking down a lot of potential.
A lot of it.
2 weeks ago, we hosted your superior, Justice Angote, who chairs the ICT Committee of the Judiciary. And he was telling us that now with ICT, many courts are getting their work done faster and more efficiently. How have you embraced ICT in the Environment and Land Court?
Yes, in the Environment and Land Court, we have embraced virtual hearings, whereby, first of all, we mention all our cases. Like from this studio, I'm going straight to my chambers. I'll not go to the open court. I'll mention all my cases virtually. And you see now you are able to deal with people from all over, wherever they are. You can actually mention your case from this studio. We deal with applications. Advocates argue their applications virtually, and of course litigants. When it comes to hearings whereby you're supposed to come and produce documents, we have a mixed system whereby you can either opt to come to court and produce your documents, or you can actually agree that you are going to do your hearing from wherever you are. And it has been a great achievement. So we are doing very well in terms of virtual hearings. The only thing that we now need to impress, and this is some of the discussions we are having, is to digitize the court completely. It's not completely digitized. We are still doing longhand proceedings. Have to sit and write whatever you are saying. So we need to improve on that. If we do away with longhand writing, you can be very sure that the period that we take to handle a file will reduce by more than 75%. Yeah, because you can imagine I'm writing from morning to evening.
Yes.
So there's no way I can move faster as expected. So we are actually engaging our development partners to be able to assist the court in digitizing the court completely, so that we stop this tradition of long writing. But we are doing very well when it comes to ICT as a court.
Okay. That case by lawyer Adrian Kamodo on the one that now got the judgment of the court, let the Ministry of Transport make modalities of ensuring their toilets and facilities on the highway landmark. Issues of environment now that we are seeing actually go beyond just land and pollution of rivers. There's such access to facilities. Then it brings the issue of sanitation, especially in the low-income areas, like in an urban area such as Nairobi. Very many people who don't have access to sanitation, yet it's a constitutional right.
It is.
Are there such cases that are, on your list of cases before court?
Yeah, they are there. We have those cases, and they are not few. They are increasing in number. They are not very many, but they are increasing in number, because we know under Article 43, every person has the right to a clean and healthy environment, including the right to sanitation, clean water, and accessible housing. So those cases are actually coming up, and we have a few decisions. You remember the Mitubel decision, where the Supreme Court said that the people in the Mitubel, which is an informal settlement, should be able to be settled, so that they have what I can call decent living. So those are issues that the court is actually encountering, and the numbers are going up, and it's a right in the Constitution. So once we look at the facts, then we will be able to enforce that right, because they are entitled to it as human beings. Yeah, we all need to live a dignified life, notwithstanding our backgrounds.
Indeed. What's your caseload at present?
Our caseload has come down from 27,000 cases when we started the court in 2012. Right now we are at 11,000 cases. The entire Environment Land Court, we are at 11,000. And we, because of our high clearance rate, because we are now doing around 159% as clearance rate. Clearance rate is where the number of cases you are dealing with should be higher than the number of cases filed. So we are clearing our cases at a faster rate than the number of cases being filed. So we are at around 159. So we are hoping that in the next 5 or so years, that caseload will have gone down. But we are now at 11,000, with around 4,000 cases which are more than 3 years old. And one of the requirements by the Office of the Chief Justice is to make sure that we deal with those matters which are 3 years and more expeditiously, so that we remove them from the system. So that's our caseload, and we are very particular with statistics nowadays. We are very good at it, because we realize that if we don't do that, then we will not be able to know exactly what we are doing. So we have those statistics. We are at 11,000 countrywide.
You recently got several judges who
Yes, we did, and that's why we really have high expectations that those numbers should go down drastically. Because we started off with 15 judges, then in 2016 we were given, and we employed 19 judges, and in last year we had 18 more judges. So we are now at 51 judges. So that is a good number, and that's why we've been saying that going forward we should be able to really reduce the backlog that has been there for a while.
Justice Angote, thank you very much for joining us today. Thank you for coming to shed light on what the Environment and Land Court has been doing, and congratulations on 10 years and all the work that you've done, clearing from 27,000 cases to 11,000, and working faster than the way you are, is a good thing.
Thank you very much for inviting me. And we are inviting the media to celebrate with us the 10 years of the existence of the court. And going forward after that particular conference, you can be very sure that we are really going to be on top of things.
Asante sana.
Asante sana, nimeshukuru. Thank you for this opportunity.
Kisumu tunakuja. Good morning. It's 8 a.m.
Spice up your life. The latest news from around the world. 94.4 Spice FM.
Good morning, busy into Dennis Aseto. President Uhuru Kenyatta has made 16 new changes in the Kenya Defence Forces on the advice of the Kenya Defence Council, chaired by Eugene Wamalwa, the Cabinet Secretary for Defence. The changes take effect immediately and include promotions and appointments as advised by the council. Among those promoted is Kenya Army Major General Peter Mbogo Njiru to Lieutenant General, and has also been appointed Commander Kenya Army, while Lieutenant General Walter Koipaton retires on completion of 4 years of duty. Brigadier David Kimayo Chemwaina Tarus has been promoted to the rank of Major General and appointed General Officer commanding Western Command. Other changes have also been made across the Kenya Defence Forces in line with the advice of the Defence Council. And the fight against terrorism in the country has received a major boost after the government, in partnership with Britain, opened the first ATPU unit in Mombasa. The headquarters were unveiled alongside a new police station to be known as Mombasa Police Station. The official unveiling of the facility, which cost 81 million shillings, was presided over by British High Commissioner to Kenya Jane Marriott and Interior Cabinet Secretary Fred Matiang'i. The police station, which includes a secure detention facility with separate cells and private ablution amenities for men and women and children, will provide a dedicated space for the ATPU to work on terrorism cases.
While we hold terrorists in these facilities, we are also able to process them through the justice chain here. That keeps the population out there safer, gives us an opportunity to expeditiously deal with their challenges, and also ensure that cases involving terror and terrorist activities do not linger around in our justice system. We live in a globalized environment. Trouble somewhere is trouble everywhere. And therefore, we are gratified that our partners are willing to work with us to address this challenge of terrorism.
This as Matiang'i directed that more police officers be deployed to the coast region to heighten security ahead of next month's general election. He said intelligence reports had flagged out politically linked mobilization of gangs and other illegal groupings that could pose a security threat in at least 2 counties in the region. The CS, who was speaking after chairing a meeting of the Coast Region security chiefs in Mombasa, said the additional officers and more equipment are expected on the ground beginning next week.
The IG and I have already made the decisions on those additional resources and where we are going to place them. So we are ready to proceed, and people, of course, should have nothing to worry about. Go about your activities peacefully, obey the law, choose leaders you desire, exercise your democratic right, and thank God you live in a democratic, free and peaceful country.
The Independent Electoral Boundaries Commission has filed an appeal to challenge a decision by the High Court to include Reuben Kigame in presidential ballot papers for August 9th general election. In a statement, IEBC argued that the judgment by Justice Anthony Mrima presents a number of setbacks, such as interfering with timelines for the conduct of presidential elections. The poll body further stated that Kigame only presented a list of 1,013 supporters as of 25th of May, as opposed to 48,000 supporters as required by the law. And the national government has adopted a multi-sectoral approach to finding a lasting solution to the sanitation menace at the 2 major prisons in Kisumu County. The State Department of Correctional Services Principal Secretary Safina Kwekwe, while on a routine assessment tour in the Lakeside County, revealed that waste management units would be constructed at the Kisumu Maximum and Kibos prisons to solve perennial sewerage problems at the facility. P.S. Afia, who was accompanied by the Commissioner General of Prisons, John Warioba, and the Administrative Secretary, Kenya Prison Service, Patrick Mwangi, said there is an urgent need to improve sanitation services through the establishment of modern wastewater management and the correctional units to curb environmental pollution. And finally, we remind you that Standard Media Group, together with the National Cohesion and Integration Commission, have come together to sell and send a message of peace to all Kenyans out there, reminding you that Kenya is the only home that we have, that we maintain peace before, during, and even after the general election. We are traversing the country as we sell this message. We therefore ask you to be part of it through the Elections Bilanoma campaign. This is Newswire. I'm Dennis Aseto. Good morning.
.5 Spice FM.
All right, so we're looking at traffic still building up on the Thika Superhighway going into the city, Jogo Road, from the beginning to the end. There's a lot of traffic this morning, and it looks like this hour is when folks have woken up. Kiambu Road also pretty busy. We're looking at Thika Superhighway also doing that thing this morning, and Langata Road with some traffic today. Coming out of Westlands, James Gishuru going on to the Nairobi Expressway. The exit today is absolute madness. Not quite sure what that particular bottleneck is, but it keeps giving off those every morning, and we're looking at heavy bumper-to-bumper traffic on the exit at Westlands on the Nairobi Expressway. Let's keep an eye on things this morning and see what it looks like in a bit. Let's talk then. SpiceFM KE on Twitter.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Okoh, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latiff, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room, the only way to start
good
your
morning.
day.
Welcome to the what hour of the show? It's the third hour of Kenya's biggest conversation, The Situation Room, broadcasting on Spice FM. We are live around the country. We are also live on YouTube and Facebook around the world. We are live as well on KTN Home for the next 1 hour. We have two guests in the studio. Political analysts. We'll be talking about 18 days to the general election. Who has what and who's likely to get what? But before that, the day's proverb.
Good morning, boys and girls.
The proverb of the day is brought to you by Aquafresh Fresh Gel.
Our proverb is from the country of Zimbabwe. And we'll have proverbs from that country today, tomorrow, and on Monday. A grilled locust is better than no soup.
A grilled locust is better than no soup. The soup bit is what is just throwing me off a bit.
That's why it's a proverb.
Yeah? Honestly, it's better than no meat. Or better than no meal.
Or better than nothing at all.
Or better than nothing. Why soup?
See, you've gotten to the heart of the matter.
Why soup?
Why
is there
locust?
a reason why they picked
Why
grilled locust? Maybe it's not normal to eat locusts in that part of the world.
Oh, no, it's very normal.
So?
Locusts are considered a delicacy.
Then you're basically saying food is better than nothing. They already have food.
Not specifically, because locusts are not always in abundance. They're seasonal, on and off, but they're eaten, and they're a delicacy, and they're collected. And they're not the only insects that are collected and eaten. However, the discussion here is around food. Better this than nothing. Better this than the other. That's really what it's about. Now, extrapolate that into real life and ask yourself, what is better than the other, or what is to be preferred as opposed to something else? Yes.
Grilled locust and soup. Which is better? Okay.
Brush your teeth twice a day with Aqua Fresh Gel, the secret to long-lasting fresh
Two
breath,
political
strong teeth,
analysts
and
join us
healthy
on the
gums.
show this morning. Herman Manyora has been here before, and Gerald Bitok has also been here before. Good morning, gentlemen.
Morning, Chuladi.
Good to see you, man. Gerald, hey.
What up?
Umepata nomination?
Bado labda Manyora, unajua Manyora ndiye anapeana nominations. Ndio system, deep state. So he's the one who is dishing out. So not unless he has me in the list, I'll be happy to hear that.
Talk well.
But it's a pleasure to be back here.
He should talk to you well.
Yeah, talk well.
Yeah.
And this is what you're talking about, state capture. I have to talk to Manyora well to get a nomination.
Right off the blocks. Who's we, Gerard, that's talking about state capture?
Who is?
Who's we?
He's an insider, you know.
Many people are speaking about state capture. I mean, it's not a new conversation since you have conversations here every morning. And I think I must commend you guys for the conversation that you have every single morning. I must say that my frequency is stuck on SpiceFM because that's the only place that we get very objective conversations in the country. When you tune in elsewhere, it's about sex and gambling. So the fact that we can have real conversations here is something that I love to keep coming back for.
You earned the invitation.
I need to ask you. Are you suggesting we should also talk about sex and gambling?
No. That's why I'm here, because you talk about the right things. The moment you start talking about sex and gambling, I'll be out. Yes.
Okay. Herman, you can already tell this man you're telling us is an insider from one side. Yeah?
He says we.
Yeah, he says we are talking about state capture. It's part of them that are talking about state capture.
Okay, let him be.
It's a national conversation. It's not about one camp or one people. Even where you sit, my friend, is you speak about the same things, because any place that takes up what should be yours is a conversation that you must have. Sit here. I've heard him speaking about the same things as well several times. I've heard Du speaking about what goes wrong in this country. And I mean, it cannot be a reserve for a few people. It's not that when I speak about an issue that's of national concern, I belong to a certain side. And I think that is one of the stereotypes that we must deal with as a nation. That when you raise an issue, they say, who you? No, upande fulani. When you speak about something, they say, who you? No, Azimio Mano Kenya Kwanza. We are in a nation that we are all affected by either management or mismanagement that happen in the country. So we are allowed to speak about it without necessarily being lumped up into a political camp.
Very good.
So yes, it's an opinion that I have as a person, and it affects me in every way.
So it's not just sloganeering, because there are people who picked up this. State capture. In South Africa there's a state capture commission. In Kenya there's a report that's been released by lawyers, talked about state capture. Then everybody now goes with state. What is state capture from your definition?
For me, I think, you see, this is a nation. And a nation is not a private property. It doesn't even belong to us. It belongs to people, generations that are going to come. One day, all of us that are sitting here will not be here. And we still have a nation. So if me that have a privilege of maybe having an head start in this nation continues to control the resources of this country, continues to control the opportunities in this country, continues to control every right that every citizen that is born is entitled to, then that is state capture. If I have the power to make decisions on behalf of 50 million citizens, and I make those decisions in favor of myself or people that are associated to me, then it means I've put the nation in a capture that I control myself because of my place of power. For me, that's how I look at it. So the thing is, we must take off this country from people who feel they're entitled to those things that we have as a nation in terms of resources, opportunities, and everything else, and distribute it to millions of other citizens that also deserve the same opportunities. That's how I would define it. I will not define it from a political angle, but I'll define it from a place of privilege and power. If you have the privilege, for instance, you hold the microphone, you hold the studio console that you control the sound. If you decide this morning that you're the only person who's going to speak and all our mics are muted off, then that is state capture in this studio. You've captured us. You're sitting here, we have microphones, but you cannot speak because you control the console and you can switch off anytime you want.
How do you distinguish that from just basic abuse of office?
Basic abuse of office is transitional because you cannot hold an office forever. But about power and privilege in Kenya, for instance, and Africa, it's been proved that you can have it over a longer stretch of time. So abuse of office is a different thing. Capture is a different thing, because if you're capturing all the very integral resources of a country, then it means every other person cannot access it. But abuse of an office is what you are doing. You can say, be talk, don't speak, and I don't speak. You're abusing your office. But if you continue to propagate this over time, even when you leave Standard Group and you go to another place and you keep off switching mics on other people, then that is what we call capture. Unless that power is taken away from you, then you're continuing to sit on us for the longest time. And that's what we are saying. I mean, a country has to develop, it has to grow, it has to outgrow people. Kenya, for instance, has not outgrown the people who founded it. For the longest time, we still speak about people who founded this country. And I must say this, that every generation must be allowed to define its struggle and to remember its own heroes. We cannot live in the past. We cannot be hung over it forever. And we cannot leave power in the people who founded the nation. We must take power to other people. The more we distribute this power, I can tell you, the more the beautiful nation that we will have. But as long as we're still paying homage to people that we say, oh, the founding mother Ndu, the founding father, this guy, and now we are bowing before you for 50 years, that is something that we must deal with.
Are you aware that what you're saying, much as it sounds really true, is the narrative that all would-be, wannabe, might have been liberators have always said. And then they proceeded to do the very thing that they castigated those they were castigating against. History bears witness to this. Think of any country that you want to think of. Think of any liberation that you want to think of. And ask yourself what happened to the liberators when they now supposedly liberated their countries and got into power.
What is history? History is something that you've lived. You cannot speak about history that you've not lived. So we must give each generation an opportunity to live and define its own history. You cannot hold us hostage to a generation of maybe octogenarians who've made their own mistakes or did the right things, and then you want us to pay that price. I cannot pay Manyora's price. We've grown up in totally different generations. There are things he did right, there are things he did wrong, and I cannot be a victim of his mistakes. You must give us an opportunity to define our own history. Whether we fail or we win, it's our right as a generation to define our own history. We've seen several times and I've continued to be a critic of this, but you cannot tell us that a generation has done all the wrong things. There are things that were done right. We appreciate what people did in the struggles. Look at Momo, for instance, fighting for freedom, kicking out the white man. They did their own job. We had home guards as well who betrayed the cause. But do we say that we lump all of us in the camp of home guards and say, okay, the home guards failed, so all of us failed? Look at the people who vote for multi-party democracy. They did the right things. There are people who did the wrong thing. They went into bed with the governments of the day. But we cannot blame them entirely on that. But what you are saying is we cannot use our generational moment as a young generation to reward people who fought a past cause. We must be given an opportunity as well to do the right things and make our own mistakes. And we must allow, even when the time comes for me to exit as a generation and give it to my children. I cannot tell my children or the children of Ndu city, of course, the children of Manyora could be my age. We cannot tell that generation that you must reward us in your head. And that's why I have a problem with this thing, that we fought for multi-party democracy. We went for Sabasaba to Lekula tear gas. That was your struggle. We have a different struggle right now, and we must be allowed to entirely define it without using it as a reward scheme for people who imagine that they're entitled for a struggle that they fought. So this is our moment. Let us live our moment. Let us define our struggles. Let us define our history. Whether we fail or not, or we win, it is our moment. So let us live.
There's something that I'd like you to help me understand. Yes. The struggles, the definitions, and the culminations of these struggles. Tell me the struggles you know of that were given to people. They're handed to them, saying, it's your time now, take it. You've waited long enough, and we've been in this thing long enough, now it's your turn. Have it. Where has it been given to people?
Here's the thing. We must understand how, first of all, we founded this nation. Where are the men who fought in the forest? Kenyatta, for instance, was never in any forest. He was in the UK, having coffee and tea on the balconies of London. The men who fought in the forest today have died homeless. Talk about Dedan Kimathi. The other day, the widow died. I mean, with almost no land, while they were fighting for land in the forest. This system must continue to reward the wrong people. The founding of this country in itself They said, oh, this gentleman was in the UK, he was agitating for democracy. But the people who poured blood, who died for this struggle, were never rewarded. We're speaking about squatters who are freedom fighters. Go to Nyeri today. Speak to the people of Nyeri. The Momo fighters today are squatters in their own country while they were sitting in the forest fighting for the same land. So if you ask me, sir, we handed over the benefits of freedom to the wrong people. Right? Look at it right now. We're having a conversation and saying, Raila comes out and says, unajua mimi nimepigana vita mingi, nilifungwa miaka mingi, I was fighting for this and that. But the question is, we are a generation, the generation we're having right now will never understand these stories that you tell them. They want to ask the issue that we have right now, unemployment, joblessness we even experience at the moment, the cost of living, how are you going to fix it for us? But you cannot turn it into a position of rewarding. So if you ask me who has been rewarded, first of all, the founding father of this country was given a country that probably he never really fought for. This moment we're having a conversation around, okay, let's reward Mother Karua, let's reward Raila Odinga, let's reward these other people because of what they fought at that time. I insist, we are a generation that have nothing.
Are we looking at a system of rewards when we're talking about political choices that are then going to be made in the next 19 days?
And that's what I'm saying.
Is that what we're looking at, Herman? Are we saying that as you're making your choice on who to put in the seat, that what you're looking at is a reward system as opposed to looking at somebody who is essentially going to come and do the things that will save this country economically and otherwise? Are we looking at a reward system, or are we actually looking at picking the right person or persons for leadership?
That's me?
That's you, Herman.
My friend has said so many things. I don't know where to start. I have not had anybody, peoples, create the reward narrative as a basis of choice. So I doubt that Kenyans want to choose, if they are choosing Raila as a reward. I think they will have looked at other factors. If the role he has played in the struggle for what we have today is part of the things they are considering, that you can't deny Kenyans that right to, because they'll be ticking many boxes. When you are looking for somebody, there are many boxes you tick. If one of those boxes is what Raila and Karua have done for this country, there will be nothing wrong with that. Allow me to something like he says, which is correct, that we need to distribute power. That it can only be that only one category of Kenyans get. And I think that's a nice conversation for this country. And the best place to start before we move from certain families and create other families, maybe we'll need to start by moving from certain tribes that have dominated that power, because we have had Kikuyu, Kalenjin, Kikuyu, now we want to go to Kalenjin. That's where to start if you want to distribute power. Because at the end of the day, something of that nature is not sustainable, and it has brought many nations down. If you make people of a country feel they will never, ever, through democratic means, ascend to power, to have a sense of belonging and ownership, then you are creating trouble for yourself. I think I think these are dangerous narratives as we peddle them. And even at the most basic level, you are saying there are certain families. What you are saying, let's move from one set of oligarchs to another set of oligarchs. Because I always find the conversation to be a little stupid. Because then you are saying we have a problem with Uhuru because his father was a president. What happens to Nick Ruto? I see looks a very political chap. What happens to Nick Ruto when next time he wants to run for president? Shall we deny him because his father was one time deputy president, even wanted to be president, or even became president? That is not how it's done anywhere in the world. So maybe allow me.
So shall we deny him because he's Kalenjin and Kalenjins have had the position before?
That we can do because we are looking at a bigger picture of the nation. What is not sustainable, really. Before we come to that one, we must start with the bigger one that can destroy a country, This Kikuyu, Kalenjin, it can destroy the country. It has destroyed many countries, that. When people feel, including Rwanda here, that there's no other way that anybody else can get the leadership of a country, then they resort to bad things that can destroy a country. I think we need to start there. And you know, dealing with political families will be a little tricky. There are many countries that have political families: Botswana, America, you know, Bangladesh, India, Pakistan,
Sri Lanka.
You know, that is a difficult story to deal with, because by the very nature of politics, it's about people coming forward to get power. You know, and somebody asked you, is it you or somebody asked you where is it that people have been given? Is you asked?
Yes.
You see, Obama was here, and in Taifa Hall at the University of Nairobi, a friend of mine another professor asked him, are you considering going for president? Then he was senator. But Obama told him, my friend, power doesn't work like that. Power doesn't concede anything. Power, you go for it. So if there's a generation of Kenyans that want power, they will have to go for that power. In this building here, also on a show with Nabiswa, yeah? And we were talking about East Africa, and there was a lady participant from Uganda. Yeah, she said, you people, what are you talking about? Museveni apene too. When he was in the forest, some of these guys were just playing around here. Let them go for it. You know, so power does not concede anything. Allow me just finally to talk about state capture. You know, we like using words and terms that perhaps we don't quite well understand. You must begin by understanding that it is government that provides business everywhere in the world. If you have not done business with government, then you have not done business. Big business is from government. Okay? Now, it so happens that there will be cartels, there will be influential lobby groups, you know, so that they are favored by government in terms of business. Now, there are countries where these cartels or these groups are so powerful, like in South Africa. They can be so powerful, they can capture the state. That's state capture. That's not the situation in Kenya. No, it's not in Kenya. In Kenya, it is those in power who use their position to dispense favors. So it's not state capture in the sense in which you can find state capture in South Africa. That means, therefore, we talk. And Latiff, if you want to end state capture in Kenya, you just end it. If you are the president, there's no need for a commission. You just end it, because it comes from State House. It flows from those in power to those benefiting. In South Africa, it is those benefiting who are bringing pressure to bear on government, including deciding who becomes Minister of Finance. You know that, eh? That's how we got to know it. So ours is not like South Africa, where now you can have a commission of inquiry to deal with state capture. Ours is so simple. Allow me to demonstrate. It's like you have fish in a pond in your compound, in a swimming pool which you have turned into a fish pond. Now, you feed the fish and you give them water. There's water and you feed them. So now that's what you are calling state capture. So if you become president and you don't want the fish, you just drain the swimming pool and the fish die and give it to Muga to go and cook Friday. You don't form a commission of inquiry. So these guys must tell us clean they really want to go for Uhuru. And I advise them, first of all, you cannot do it. It's not possible. It's not possible to go for Uhuru. Secondly, you will not succeed because you might be the one to go first. Thirdly,
are you saying it's not politically possible? It's not legally possible?
It is not possible. If you are to be honest and you are using the law to pursue that issue, then that net will catch some of these people before it reaches Uhuru.
Yes.
Now, from a political point of view, Africa is moving to a situation where we are encouraging heads of state, presidents, to go home peacefully. We don't want to follow them. And we are moving in the right direction. People are transiting, allowing others to take over, and they go home and they die peacefully if it must die. We want to encourage third world presidents to know that you can leave office. And so even the world will not allow you that kind of approach. But even locally, do you think Kenyans, and in particular the owners of the person, every person has their owner. Do you think the owners of the person, do you think Kikuyus will allow you to harass Uhuru when he has left office? It will be very difficult. Let me tell you, Latiff, you remember when Moi left, one of the reasons why Raila got all the votes of the Kalenjin, including perhaps if he was voting in 2007, and he was called Arab Mibe, is they were saying Kibaki had harassed the Kalenjin, hunted them out of office. You remember that kind of thing? which wasn't quite true perhaps, but look at how strong it was as to influence a 90-something% turnout and a 90-something% vote for Raila that they had been. Now you can imagine if you hold Uhuru through a tribunal with all the shame, my friend, you'll pay for it.
The deputy president has been asked that question, and he has said he is not interested in going after the president.
Latiff, can I answer you? Using nothing but logic.
Yes.
You have said state capture is what it is. What they have defined it to be.
Yes.
And Bitok has said it very well, okay? Now you tell us next, you give us examples of what state capture is. The examples you give without having to infer directly are about the Kenyatta family. CBA is about Kenyatta family, right? Milk is about the Kenyatta family, right? And all the issues of land, as Gachagua put very well, is about the Kenyatta family. Then we go to the next logical observation, that since state capture, what we call state capture, is something a president can switch off, and that's the end of it. We don't hear about it again. Then why would you come with a commission? The commission will be intended not to stop state capture, as I've explained, because you stop state capture in our context by simply switching off. So what will be the intention of the commission? It will be to go after past crime. Past crime, you link it to past people. You have already given us examples of the people. Example number 1, Kenyatta. Your example number 2, Kenyatta. Your example number 3, Kenyatta. So who are you going after? Logically, you are going after Kenyatta.
Oh, Manyora.
You have not even given one example outside the Kenyattas.
I think you'll
Let's take a break. It's 8:30. This is Kenya's biggest conversation. Herman Manyora and Gerard Bitok, two political analysts who are here. Gerard Bitok, of course, talking about state capture. We can tell on which side he's leaning. He's not saying it, but we can infer. Herman Manyora, on the other hand, he's not saying it, but he can also infer. Okay. So, which side are we talking about? Pocket by Mozilla is this beautiful app by Mozilla. You go to Google Play Store or Apple App Store and download it. And then after you download it,
when you download it, then what it allows you to do is store all your documents for later. You run into a page that you want to refer to in the future, and you don't quite have enough time to do that just at that moment. You can keep it in your pocket and have access to it at a later date. Pocket by Mozilla allows you to have that information in your pocket for later.
To be Kenyan is to embrace diversity. The many faces and colors of our nation are what makes Kenya, Kenya.
Election bila noma, penda jirani. This message is brought to you by the National Cohesion and Integration Commission, NCIC, in partnership with the Standard Group.
I hope you don't believe that Hustler is a poor person. Hustler is a person who is making a living through hard work.
The group of leaders we are having now, Kenyans, listen, the chemical composition is the same. You will mold them to ODM, then NASA, you mold them to Kano, mold them to Jubilee, mold them to any other different color sometimes, but the chemical composition is the same.
It's not about me as Nurdin Haji, but it's about the constitution that I swore to protect. So when individuals attempt to hoard those powers and they want to be investigators and also prosecutors, then of course I have to defend that position because that position is in the constitution and that's what Kenyans wanted.
I'll tell you what happens is that when you ignore court orders, you're creating and quoting anarchy. Then you create a very dangerous precedent.
A story is told of the first president of the country who also went to visit Mathare, presidential tour. And of course, he went to this place and he introduced himself. So one of the enemies says, hata wewe kuna jina kama yangu.
The Situation Room.
Highs of 21 and highs of
Kenya's
13 today. It's partly sunny at 14 in Nakuru, highs of 23. 20 will be the high in a rainy Nyeri at 13, and 15 and sunny in Eldoret, highs of 22 and lows of 13. It's raining in Mombasa this morning at 23 to go to highs of 26, and 27 will be the high in a rainy Malindi as well at 23. Currently, mostly sunny conditions at 19 in Kisumu, highs of 27, and 26 will be the high in a mostly cloudy Kakamega, currently at 20. It's 21 and sunny in Kampala, 22 and sunny in Dar es Salaam, highs of 27. 8 degrees, sunny conditions in Johannesburg. 16 will be the high, coming down to lows of 7. And it's partly cloudy at 24 in Lagos with highs of 29. We'll see highs of 30 in Kinshasa. It's currently sunny at 21. All right, continues in most parts. Outer Ring not looking too bad today. The Southern Bypass is also looking very, very good this morning. Langata Road is an absolute mess. And we're also looking at Huru Highway, getting towards that Haile Selassie Junction, and then out towards the city and Westlands. Really busy this morning. Jogger Road, heavy bumper-to-bumper traffic from the train station out towards the City Stadium roundabout. We're also looking at Ngong Road, trickle of traffic here and there, but nothing too crazy. Thika Super Highway is doing a little bit better than it was about an hour ago, and we have traffic just past the Utali Drift heading out towards the Pangani Underpass. In the CBD is where you find the most of it this morning. Keep our wits about and see what happens later. That expressway exit coming out of Westlands is a nightmare. I'm not sure why it's taking such a long time to get out of it, but once you're on it, can't get off it until you're off it. Let's talk, guys. SpiceFM KE, Twitter. Let's know how your morning's going.
Spice up your life.
Here's my mic. Yeah. 24 minutes to 9. Kenya's biggest conversation. It continues. We are live on SpiceFM, on KTN Home, on YouTube and Facebook. It's Eric Latiff, Okoh, CT Muga, our guests, political analyst Herman Manyora, and political analyst Gerald Bitok. We are talking about Kenya Kwanza versus Azimio la Umoja coalition. In whose hands are we safe? Herman,
yes.
Start with you. In whose hands are we safe and why?
Politics is tricky. You can think somebody is good, but then many people have been disappointed. But we have a very limited choice. The choice of Raila Mother Karua pair vis-a-vis the choice of Ruto Gachagua pair doesn't seem to be a very difficult one to make. Because none of these people, none of these groups, none of them is coming up with anything radical. Nothing. They're just saying about the same things. The manifesto about the same things. There's none of them is touching the sensitive areas I would if I was going for presidency. I would disappoint many people. I would come up with very radical suggestions and changes. None of them. So what are we left with, Muga, really? They're talking about the same things. We are left by just looking at the person. We look at Ruto, we look at Raila, we look at Gachagua, we look at Mother. Not how beautiful or ugly they look, no. In terms of, do they have some record I can look at? Unatoa file ya Raila, unasoma kidogo, unatoa ya Mother Karua, unatoa ya Ruto. The choice is very simple. It will have to be Raila Mother.
I observe with interest.
Is that as simple as that?
Herman, that the other two candidates who are on the ballot currently, you have eliminated. You have not even bothered to give them a mention.
And one of them talked to me very badly yesterday. He told me I'm underrating him. But you see, my work is to talk about things as I see them.
Yes.
And if I don't see Ojakoya getting the 6 million votes he's talking about, I have to say it like that. But doesn't mean I'm right always. I could be wrong. And I think we all know that we are talking about Raila and Ruto. The others are good people. We even love them. But they don't stand a chance for now. But you see, the world is full of miracles. A miracle could happen today, and one of them could be president. But we are talking outside miracle. With just about what is normal and obvious, that this war is between Raila and Ruto. And we are saying we have nothing else to go for but what we know about these guys.
So what defines that position is what does define that position? That there would be support from the country for these two individuals, which according to you are the ones who stand a chance today.
Yes.
Is it by virtue of the support that is being given to them by Kenyans at large today? Or is it because Kenyans right now feel that in the hands of these two individuals, there is an element of safety then that can be trusted?
That's what I'm talking about. Who can you trust? Who can you give the president of this country between Raila and Ruto, and you go home and sleep comfortably, knowing that your country is safe, that your children will be safe, that there will be a country tomorrow? I think it's a no-brainer. Any sensible person, unless their thinking and choice is shrouded by the things that make us determine who to vote for. You know, if assuming we had a homogeneous society, that all of us were Kalenjin, and Raila was Kalenjin, and that's the best way to look at it. Let's say all of us in this country were Kalenjin, and Raila was Kalenjin, Arab Mibey, and then there was Kalenjin Ruto. Will there be a choice? Could we be having a contest in this country? There will be no contest. Every one of us would have known this Raila would be giving the job. So you look at it that way and you see how simple it becomes.
Jared.
All right, two things. Before even I get to that, is what Manyora has insinuated in the first comment that he made, that African leaders in third world countries should know that they can do anything with leadership and go scot-free and retire. I disagree with that, and that's why I have a problem with the generation of Manyora who are still hangovered with those reward schemes of the past. We are in a generation where we demand accountability. In South Africa, they're speaking, Zuma has been in jail, and that country has not collapsed; it's still moving on. So we must get out this idea that former presidents or presidents are small gods that we must worship entirely into eternity, and tell them that you can plunder the country, you can do injustice. When you retire, we'll honor you and we'll leave you to retire. Secondly, I don't know what obsession my friend Manyora has with Kalenjins, because he has first called me a Kalenjin, now he's spoken about the Kalenjin tribe. Maybe he needs to move away from that tribal angle of things. Speaking about in whose hands we are safe, I want to agree with him that politicians are some of the very interesting crops. The person you see today could not be the person that you see tomorrow. I was having a conversation with some residents of Kithurai yesterday, and they were talking about this MCA candidate who, during elections in 2017, he could literally come, are you guys asleep? You feeling well? You okay? Melala vizuri mulikula? And naombea asubuhi, guys, good morning. I pray for you. May God bless you. Today, they want to kick him out because he has become the worst crop of a leader that they expected him to be. Coming to in whose hands we are safe, I want to agree with him that we can never look at the individuals. I disagree with him. He's telling us that we need to feel we are safe because we are looking at the way Ndu looks like or Latiff looks like, and they're like, okay, fine. The way I look at you and do looks like we'll be safe in your hands. We must look at the agenda that you have for this nation. And that is what the problem we have. We must interrogate the agendas and the manifesto that these guys have. What do you want to do for us? We must stop looking at individuals and saying, okay, this is how you look like and we might be able to be February in your hands. If you ask me, these politicians have been in the landscape for the longest time. The same thing that Manyora is preaching this morning, they preached it in 2013. The question of choices have consequences. You remember Uhuru Kenyatta and William Ruto, and they were saying that you cannot elect criminals. You cannot elect criminals to run a country. Choices have consequences. We went ahead and we elected those people. Today, Manyora stands in and supports Uhuru Kenyatta, that he said at that time that choices have consequences. Look at it. When you look at Manyora, for instance, he is a complete evidence of the evolution of politicians in this country. The person that told us in 2013 that choices have consequences is supporting him today. And that is why I find a problem with this dishonesty and hypocrisy in a way he tries to look at Kenyan politics. So if we move away our Kenyan leadership and politics from individuals, don't look at the personalities.
Look at what?
Let's move to the issues. And that is the mediocrity that we have in this country.
The issues
that
being
you want to
promised
tell
by
us,
that person.
let's look at the issues. What are these people telling us they're going to do? Manyora has not taken even a second to interrogate the manifesto of Raila Odinga and Martha Karua. He has simply told us, look at these two people, ladies and gentlemen, how do they look like? The Baba and Mama, oh, good. Baba and Mama, you are safe in your hands. He's not telling us what agendas and plans he has for this country. They have for this country. So if you ask me and my generation, which Manyora doesn't speak for, and that is the biggest, the majority that's going to vote this time, this is what we are saying. What do you want to do for us? We are unemployed. What do you want to do to ensure that we have employment? We have a problem with the cost of living. What are you going to do to ensure that we can live at an affordable rate? Get 2,000. If I give you 10,000 right now, Eric Latiff, to go to the supermarket nearest, you'll come back with a small bag. That is the questions we are asking. And that's what I'm telling you. Yeah. We are having this argument with totally different people.
Yeah.
These guys focused on how these guys look like. We are focused about the issues.
Must I be young to be able to talk about youth issues?
No, the issue is this is what we are saying. If you're not speaking our language, whether if you are old or young, even if I have a young person who is not speaking my language, I have a problem with it. And what I'm saying, if Manyora wants us to have this conversation in whose hands we are safe in, let him tell us the agenda that Martha Karua has and Baba Raila Odinga. Let's also interrogate what William Ruto has. And this is what we are saying. We have one struggle right now. The struggle that we are in right now is about the economy. Anybody who is going to tell me how they are going to fix the economy, that's the person I'm going to consider being self-hands with. If it is Raila Odinga who is going to convince me that there's a way he's going to turn around the economy of this country, I'm going to vote for that place. If Raila Odinga or William Ruto is going to tell me how the young people that are coming out of university are going to get employment, I'm going to vote for that ticket. But you cannot tell me, look at this guy, how handsome does it look like? Or how...
But Gerard,
does it look like?
Yes. Forget about what Manyora is saying. Both those candidates have produced their manifesto, in which they're talking about all those things that you've mentioned. How are they going to address healthcare? How are they going to address the cost of living? How are they going to address employment, youth opportunities? How are they going to address industrialization and growing the economy?
Okay.
Both
so
sides have talked about that.
Let me look at both of them. Now, Raila Odinga, for instance, has promised, he has run on a social ticket, and he has said we want to ensure that there's social protection by saying that we're going to dish out 6,000 shillings to every Kenyan.
Not
anybody,
every Kenyan.
To people, vulnerable families. But how do we define
2
vulnerable?
million vulnerable families.
How do you count? Who counted it? Do we have who went out? Have you been counted?
Yes.
I mean, there's not
the figures are available.
So we are looking at social. We are looking at social protection on that end. On terms of industrialization, we're talking about one county, one product. I don't know how viable that is. On matters debt or running of the economy, we are saying that we are going to source money from stopping corruption. You stop corruption, then fine. After you stop corruption, the money that goes to corruption will come and implement that and use it in the economy. What has been inspiring about that is, all these are promises as we look at it. Let's flip to this other end. This other gentleman, William Ruto, is speaking about bottom-up economics, getting sure that the money comes from taking back the resources to the people and ensuring that the people at the bottom can build up wealth and bring it up. He's spoken about institutionalizing the fight against corruption, empowering institutions as opposed to fight corruption to ensure that we see loopholes and ensure that we have more money in the economy. He's spoken about the negotiating debt and all that. He's spoken about giving an environment that every other person can do what they do best. You, every Latiff, you come here every morning to broadcast, assuming this was your studio. Then you give an environment to ensure that you can thrive in your own way. It is between the two things. In my own way, if you ask me in whose hands I'm safe in, personally, as Gerald Bitok, as a businessman, because I do business, I would feel safer in the hands of Kenya Kwanza.
Why?
The environment to thrive and to do what I do best.
What does that mean?
Affordable credit for my business. Right now, the biggest headache if you've ever done any business, the biggest headache is how to raise funds. Where are you going to get the money to raise? The cost of credit is also obnoxious in this country. A few years ago when Kibaki was in
What
power,
is the Kenya Kwanza promise for Gerard Bitok, who is not a student who's just left university, but somebody who has been in business for a couple of years? What's a Kenya Kwanza promise for Gerard Bitok accessing credit?
This is what you're saying, and this is what they're saying. That are going to ensure that they can give over 100 billion to ensure there's affordable credit for people who are running business. Another thing is ensuring that this licensing regime, if you go to any business today, you find our whole wall is full of licenses. Kuna license ya hii, kuna license ya kuimba, kuna license ya kukoa, kuna license ya everything. Why do we need all these licenses to cripple businesses? And people who are startup businesses, how can they ensure that they can access credit easily? We've seen this today. We had the enterprise fund, we had the youth fund that has been.
Fund.
I heard you guys discussing the other day. I listened to you. The other day you're talking about how money, the ministry claimed to have dispersed money that cannot be traced to anybody. You cannot trace the people who received that money. So here's what you're saying: let the money go to the right people, so that every Kenyan has an opportunity to be productive. I can tell you, anybody who is talking to you about distribution is a con man. Anybody is telling you that, we're going to give you this, we're going to give, that's a con man.
But is that
because
not,
we don't
is that
have anything.
not the 100 billion is all about also?
This is what you're saying.
Surely, so
this is what we're giving you
who
credit.
is and who isn't the con person?
You're being given credit. But someone is telling you, I'll be giving you free money every month. There's nothing in this country to give for free. We need someone who can bake more cake. We don't have a cake anymore. We don't even have ugali.
But Gerald,
yes.
the people who are targeted have already been targeted. The vulnerable in this country were mapped out, counted, determined a long time ago. And even as we speak, the money doesn't get to them, but the plan has been in place for the longest time. This 6,000 you keep hearing about, it's called universal basic income. It's not something we're experimenting with. It's been done before. And it focuses on people without whom, without that help, will not be able to even live.
Muga.
Not a question of just moving. When it comes to the issue of what you're making available, the situation we find ourselves in is not the lack of availability of funds. It is because this government, by the way, it's a government, Uhuru and Ruto, that government, because of the domestic borrowing, mopped up every money that you can think of. The debt we speak of in this country is 50 external, 50 domestic. It is a safe way to invest. Banks will not give you money. The Kibaki government was able to enable us this because they reduced what they were borrowing.
So that's the reason why Gerard Bitok, the businessman, cannot access credit.
Yes, the banks are not going to give him money.
And
he's not a priority to the banks.
And here's the thing, Muga, I want to take you back to the things that you're speaking about. During COVID time, they spoke about money that they borrowed in billions to give to vulnerable families. I don't know how many of them received it. We have a scheme right now that is called the old age scheme.
Inua Jamii.
Inua Jamii, ambao wanapewa wazee. I can tell you, I don't know how often you guys go to those villages, but go to those villages and just try and listen to the stories around this Inua Jamii program. It's a total fraud. It is. And I want to get to a place where we are having a conversation about productivity, because even those families that are calling vulnerable, there's no way you're going to lift them out of that place, not unless we want to condemn them to permanent and eternity of vulnerability. But here's what we're saying: we must start thinking about the productivity of those families, unless we're having a case whereby these people cannot be productive for one reason. Maybe they're disabled, terminally disabled, or maybe they are sick, terminally ill, that they cannot be productive. But if we're having a conversation around vulnerable families in the sense of economic level, then we must be having a conversation about how can they be productive. There's no way you can have 100% of a family that cannot be productive. If as a parent we are not productive, a child can be empowered to be productive. And that's the conversation that we must have. We cannot continue to operate a nation of tokenism. That even right now, look at the unga and mafuta and petroleum. Instead of fixing the real problems, you're talking about subsidy. We talked about unga the other day. Subsidizing unga for 4 weeks. Just was an election.
In your estimation, Gerard,
yes,
the 50 billion shilling that is being proposed to be earmarked for the hustler, as the hustler fund, how much would an ordinary hustler borrow and access?
It depends on how. It depends on how you define.
1 million, 6 million.
It depends on how
1,000.
It depends on how you define an ordinary hustler to be, and that is for them to define. But for me, it is what they are floating, because I've not done the numbers and said how many hustlers do we have want to access credit. What I want to hear is there's money somewhere that I can access, and I can access in the right procedure. I have tried to apply for the Youth Enterprise Fund for 4 times. I tried the first time in 2015 to apply for it. I tried in 2016. I gave up in 2018. So this gentleman is saying the money belongs to young people who are doing business, but they want you to produce a title deed as security. That is what they are calling accessible credit or affordable credit. I mean, when you look at it, that is hogwash. And they're still saying they're distributing money. I don't know how many young people have title deeds that they're saying they've given money to. And if there's evidence, I would want them to provide and say this is the money that we set aside. So when you talk about the money is there. The problem is how this money is managed. And if you look at the reports on how this money has been managed, it has gone, not even people that were intended to. It was complete fraud, complete corruption, and nobody talks about it. And I like the admission of Manyora. He has said that the problem that we have in this country flows from State House. He has said these things that you're calling state capture flows from State House. I agree with him 100%. It flows from State House. And unless we fix who sits in that State House, we'll continue to have these problems. Uhuru Kenyatta stated very clearly that he was lenient with corruption, and he has not told us why he was lenient. Why was he lenient? That's the question that we should be asking. You've admitted that I was lenient. Why were you lenient?
Does a new seat sanitize the position? Because that's the question for a lot of people. Is that we're not talking about brand spanking new individuals who are coming into government. We're talking about people who've been in those seats. We're talking about somebody who shares the presidency currently. So what guarantees then that getting into that seat is going to make these things that you're talking about happen? It doesn't matter which side you look at it. Everybody who is gunning for a position today has been in that position. What guarantees that these things will actually happen? I think that's the question. When you're asking in whose hands are we safe, you had people who dabbled in these things all along. What guarantees that come the 9th of August, suddenly we're going to have a sanitized individual who then will not do the things that they've done in the past?
I campaigned for Jubilee. I campaigned for Jubilee very strongly. There are many days that I didn't sleep in the house because I was saying, Kumira, this is the hope. This is the ticket that we're going to fix this country. It has disappointed me. One mistake I cannot do is to give guarantees for any politician. And right now, I've stayed off active politics completely. There's no place you'll find me doing active politics because I know what it means. And the fact that you cannot 100% speak for a politician. But I'll tell you this, politics is like going to heaven. Jesus, they've been told in the Bible that Jesus has built many houses in heaven. There are many homes. And many Christians are looking forward to getting mansions in heaven. But there are no guarantees. We're hoping that this gentleman will come down and tell us, finally, guys, let's go. Here's your mansion. Here is your whatever. And it is the same in politics because it's full of promises, flowery promises. What I can say is what feels more convincing to me as a person, what makes more sense to me as a person. And that's where I can leverage my decision on. But I cannot guarantee you and do. I'll be making a mistake to guarantee you that I can tell you William Ruto, when he gets there, I can guarantee with my skin and kidneys that he's going to do the right thing. The same thing I would not expect even my brother Yaman Manyora to guarantee that if Raila, because Raila, all these guys have been there. All these guys have been here. During Modi's time, they've been there. These guys they've been interacting together. He's spoken about William Ruto supporting Raila Odinga and calling. We called him Aramibe. We branded him. And he had an opportunity to be in government. Today we are against him as a community. The same thing William Ruto and Raila Odinga, and Lu was not against William Ruto, and they saw him as a messiah. The other time, Uhuru Kenyatta was telling us, Raila Namuganga, Raila should never have done this country, is an enemy of the nation. Today he's telling us this old man is the best thing that ever happened after sliced bread. So when we talk about politicians and their promises, I cannot put my kidneys on the table. Unless Manyora is willing to put his kidneys. But for me, I just say the promises that are put on the table and where I think is bankable.
When you listen to the Azimio promises, which of them stands out as the one that would convince you that this is the way to go?
Latiff, Jubilee came with a manifesto in 2013. And we are where we are in this country. So really, what is this manifesto we are talking about? My friend Bitok didn't listen when I was talking. I assumed he's an intelligent man because indeed he's an intelligent man. So what did I say? I said Ruto and Uhuru and Raila are talking about the same things. So forget about these manifestos. They are talking about the same things. Secondly, none of them is coming with any radical proposal that we can look at so that when Trump comes to campaign, he's talking about moving America from certain treaties that are keeping America in bondage, reassessing their contribution to NATO, those kind of radical departures. No, none of these people is saying. And I'm going to give you an example in a minute. So that's why I said Bitok and Latiff and Ndu and CT that we are only left with a choice of looking at the person. The second reason why we are looking at the person is, however wonderful the promises are, however beautiful the ideas are, however revolutionary they may be, and of course they are not, unless you deal with issues of character, of the content of the person, issues of corruption, none of those things will work if corruption thrives. So again, that is taking us back to the individual. Which pair can you believe from the choice you have? Can you believe Rigathi and Ruto will fight corruption? Because unless you fight corruption, all these beautiful things you are talking about can go nowhere. Or would you believe between the two, you will trust the pair of Raila Odinga and Martha Karua to fight corruption? It is as simple as that. And let me explain when I talk about...
So you go with your gut feeling.
It's not even gut feeling. There's evidence. There's evidence. Some individuals...
That they have fought corruption.
Some individuals, every corner they pass, somebody is talking about somebody has taken their thing. So, and others, this is in public domain. Now, let me demonstrate to you in a minute only, because I'm a teacher. I can summarize.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm looking at the time. I'm summarizing. In a minute, why these people are talking about the same things. Raila is talking about health. Okay? He's saying nothing. Ruto is talking about health. He's saying nothing. They're talking about NHIF. NHIF is a fraud. If I was the one running for president, I would say I will equip our hospitals, improve them, take care of the welfare of doctors and nurses and the entire health workers we have in this country, and every Kenyan and any Kenyan will walk there free. But NHIF is a fraud, is a business to do with the people's health. Raila is not departing from that. Neither is Ruto. When you talk about housing, none of them is telling us what we can do, that we need to do. For example, in urban cities, anywhere in the world, people don't sell land. Who are they talking about that? There are so many things. So finally, just to wrap it up, because of time, Ndu.
Yes.
This country is faced with one simple choice. Looking at these individuals, looking at their past, and the sum total of who they are to us and through what they have done, who between the two can you trust can run this country? In whose hands can your country be safe? In the hands of Ruto and Rigathi Gachagua, or in the hands of Raila Odinga and Martha Karua? And that is the determining thing, and that will come from Mount Kenya.
We'll ask the people after the news.
Correct.
In whose hands do they think they are safe, and what is the determining factor? What reason are they using to decide on whose hand they feel they are safe?
Correct.
It's 9 a.m. Kenya's biggest conversation continues on SpiceFM. We've been live on KTN News, KTN Home, and online. Good morning.
Maize government.
Baba hawezi kuogopa. Niambia yeye kwamba alete watu yake na mimi vile nilete wangu. Tukulana kwa kiwanja.
Hapa utapigiwa kura 90%.
Wakenya wana sababu. Sio? Pili, Wakenya wana nia. Tatu, Wakenya wana uwezo ya kuleta mabadiliko kwa nchi yao. Watu ambaye jamii ambayo ni maskini, kuna baa la njaa, hakuna chakula, hatutaki watoto walale na njaa. Watapata msaada chini ya Social Protection Program kila mwezi shilingi 6,000.
These as Kenya Kwanza Brigade took their campaigns to Tana River, Kilifi and Lamu as we first approached the August 9th general elections. Ruto held several meetings in the Ukambani region before going to the coast, where he revisited the politics surrounding the port operations, insisting that through his government he will ensure that he returns those operations to Mombasa in a bid to create employment in the area.
Mombasa sasa inakaa kama mahame na watu wachache wanajinufaisha. Wale walikuwa wanaongea hapa na mdomo mrefu, wao ndio wamenufaika na ile mambo ya port operation ambayo ilipelekwa kule Nairobi na kwingine.
Now, the prosecution has closed the Monica Kimani murder case where Joseph Irungu, Elias Joy and Jackie Maribe have been charged with killing the late businesswoman at her house in Lamuria Gardens. The prosecution called over 40 witnesses to testify against the two suspects over the murder that occurred on September 19, 2018. Investigation Officer Chief Inspector Maxwell Otieno, who was the last witness to testify, told the court that the murder weapon has never been recovered. And the Director of Criminal Investigations, George Kinoti, has called for more collaboration among African countries in the fight against transnational organized crimes. Speaking after he wrapped up his 3-day security-related visit to the Republic of Rwanda, Kinoti said Kenya and Rwanda will seek to improve the existing information-sharing channels to enhance security in the two countries. Kinoti, who is also the Interpol Executive Committee Delegate for Africa, was in Rwanda for a series of security-related engagements where he met Rwanda Inspector General of Police Commissioner General Dan Munyuza and the Secretary General of the Rwanda Investigations Bureau, Janot Ruhunga. And a woman has been arrested after burning her children's hands in Athi River, Machakos County. Police said the woman burnt the hands of her children aged 6 and 8 as punishment for eating sugar. Kanaye Area Chief Josephat Musinga confirmed the incident, saying the woman committed the heinous act at Kilili area using a hot knife and nylon paper. The suspect will be arraigned in court today. A total of 15 unknown and unclaimed bodies at the Kisii Teaching and Referral Hospital mortuary are said to be disposed of following an order issued by a Kisii court. Senior Principal Magistrate Caroline Ocharo granted the application, which had been filed by the Health Facilities Chief Executive Officer through the Senior Public Health Officer in charge of sanitation, Thomas Makworo, under certificate of urgency. According to the application, the bodies were brought in from the hospital's wards and 6 police stations within the county between September 2020 and December 2021. Prior to filing the application, the hospital had released a public statement saying the bodies had caused congestion and nuisance contrary to Rule 3 of the Public Health Act Cap 242 of the laws of Kenya. And Nyali lawmaker Mohammed Ali is asking the High Court to strike down a petition filed against him by Brookside Dairy Limited. Brookside had on July 6th gone to court accusing the MP of vilifying the company, its business and its products at a political rally. The dairy processing firm in court papers claimed that the outspoken lawmaker had claimed that Brookside, a firm linked to President Uhuru Kenyatta and his family, was exploiting farmers by buying raw milk for 20 shillings and reselling it at 120 shillings after processing. As a result, the company asked the court to issue orders compelling Mohammed Ali, a former journalist, to pay compensation as determined by the court for the harm and loss caused to the farm. The company also wanted a permanent injunction restraining Ali from inciting the public to cause economic or commercial harm to the business. But Ali has raised an objection and wants the High Court to throw out the suit. In his defense, the MP says he did not contravene Bill of Rights as claimed by the company. This is Newswire. I'm Dennis Aseto. Good morning.
.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Bad in terms of traffic, except on Jogoo Road and Uhuru Highway getting into the city. Looking a little bit better on Langata Road and getting into the CBD as well. Coming off the Thika Superhighway, not too much of an issue here at all. We're looking at Kiambu Road a little bit here and there, and Limuru Road as well. We'll be out of traffic hour early, it seems, today. Yes, I know, it's still slamming on that exit from the expressway coming out of Westlands, and that's moving really slowly. I think we're going into now easily a kilometre of traffic. It's really messy there this morning. Let's keep an eye on things. It's due to fizzle out in no time, that's for sure. But for now, keep your wits about and patience up. SpiceFM KE on Twitter. Let's keep it there.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Okoh, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latiff, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is the Situation Room.
Good morning, and how are you
the
doing?
only
Welcome
way
to
start
the
your
final
day.
hour of the Situation Room today, Thursday, 21st day of July 2022. We still have the political analysts Gerard Bitok and Herman Manyora in the studio. We are talking about Kenya Kwanza versus Azimio. In whose hands do we feel safe? And we want to open the phone line 0719-012-600. As Gerard says, let's look at what they are promising. Let's look at their manifesto. Let's interrogate the manifesto. What are they promising and what sounds practical? He says, if you just use that, Kenya Kwanza is the way to go. Herman Manyora says, forget the manifestos. They are promising the same thing. Same things have been promised before. They haven't been done. Now look at the people and their own personal track record and their own personal integrity. And using that, Azimio is the way to go. What do you think? Do you have a different opinion? Do you have a different approach? Let's hear from you. But before we hear from you, let's hear from CT.
Good morning, boys and girls.
The proverb of the day is brought to you by Aqua Fresh
A
Gel.
grilled locust is better than no soup.
A grilled locust is better than no soup.
Yes.
You get it, Ndo?
You know, I'm actually not allowed to edit these proverbs, so I can't say 3 grilled locusts are better than 2 cups of soup. I can't say.
Or that soup was the thing. Or that soup was the thing to have. And if you didn't have soup and you saw a locust trotting about, you could actually take it and grill it, as opposed to not having anything in your belly that night.
That's a good thought, actually.
No, not a good thought. The only thought.
Yes.
If soup was the way to have, that means the soup is a staple in this
Or
case.
a soup is the thing to have.
But it isn't available.
But it's not
So
available.
soup is the staple in this case, but
Yeah.
then it's not available. So look for the next best thing.
Yeah.
Which
There's
is
a locust outside the window.
Take cake.
Light it up.
It's not bread.
Maybe I have a different opinion on that.
What do you think?
Maybe you see the soup. The soup is a product of meat. Sometimes you can have what meat with a lot of soup. So maybe the easiest to get is soup. So it's better to have a locust maybe which is lower than the soup than to miss the soup which is lower than the meat.
There's vegetable soup, Baba.
Soup ni supu. Whatever the case. Naweza kuwa mboga ni kidogo, supu ni nyingi. Ask the people of Central for like city Eric.
Yes.
Ukiuliza Eric hapa atakwambia pale they say kuna supu ni nyingi kuliko nyama.
Supu ni
Sometimes
viazi.
they find you can have more soup than the substance in itself. So yeah.
I think when we need to understand the eating habits
of these people.
Like, for example, the French Maria talking about cake, and many people across the world have misunderstood it. They think cake is more expensive than bread. No. In the French way of life, bread is everything. Bread is like ugali. So you can imagine telling a Luo man, that me not talk about Kalenjin now. La Luo man.
At least
that leo hakuna ugali, kimbia kwa duka nunua mkate.
Ama Luos, not Luos.
Even chapati, you know, you have not eaten until umeshika uga. So for the French, bread is so critical that the baker is one of the most important people in society. And this bread is not made at home. So every village has a baker. Where now people, meal time for dinner, you go there and get that ugali, which they call bread, and then you make your own stew. So in the absence of that woman was saying, then you can eat cake.
Go for the next best
Cake
thing.
is an inferior product, extremely inferior.
So it was an insult to the people.
Yes, people misunderstanding. So this locust thing again, unless we understand, perhaps is a community that where soup is without soup you have not eaten.
That's what I was asking. Why soup?
It must be very critical on their menu.
It must be the main meal.
Yeah.
Okay.
Brush your teeth twice a day with Aqua Fresh Gel, the secret to long-lasting fresh breath.
So
strong teeth, and healthy
0719-012-600,
gums.
let's hear from you. Herman, you were saying, let's not look at the promises.
Yeah, they are the same.
But being the same and all, why are
it goes?
If Raila Karua sat and decided to come up with a manifesto and launch manifesto, and Ruto Gachagua did the same and they launched, okay, they are promising the same thing. It means that they understand that these are the same problems that Kenyans have. If we don't look at them, then how do we know that what they're going to do?
Why would you look at them and I'm telling you they're the same? They're talking about the same things.
But the approach is where
nothing. There's nothing like approach. It boils down to which pair can implement anything they are saying. And they're talking about good things. Because I've also told you, none of them is talking about something that can transform this country. None. You talk about textile.
Are you saying the one industry per county cannot transform the country?
You are talking about industrialization, textile industry, but you are mum on second-hand clothes. You are mum on dumping. You cannot face China. None of these people can face China and tell them, look, like what Trump did. Why doesn't none of them come and say, when I take over, hii takataka kutoka China mnaona imejaa Nairobi na hamtaona hata moja. That's the only way you can create a base for industries. Do they have that courage? None of them has the courage. News came when I was talking about housing. Housing will remain just talk unless you take radical moves. You make radical moves and radical proposals. I was saying, for example, a house in Nairobi is relatively more expensive than a house in Tokyo. In New York. Why? Because we factor the price of land in the cost of the house in Nairobi. Land is given for development, it's not for sale. If you fail to develop, it reverts to the allocating authority. That's the only way you can keep prices of houses within the range that is manageable. So who is coming up with those policy that kind of thinking amount? There is nothing. So let's not waste our time. Let's just give one of these people on the basis of what we think they can do. You see, if you can talk about housing without telling me.
So the only choice we have is we must select someone.
Select a team. You can. The lesser devil, if you ask.
That's the thing. So we must pick someone.
We have to. We have no choice but to pick somebody.
So we have just to go for the lesser devil.
And now we are going for the lesser devil between Raila and Ruto. Many people will agree that Raila would be the lesser devil.
Okay.
Yes.
So we are safe in neither of the two hands.
No, you are safe in a devil whose teeth perhaps may not bite as much.
Will still die.
Then also, Latiff, you have not understood me. There are two ways of looking at our problems and at development, if you wish, and progress. One is it with what I call the normal range, what a normal eye would see, where the bar is there. That if somebody takes over and takes this country to the next level and the bar goes higher, that is development, that is progress. Now, if you are looking at that way, then Raila is far ahead of Ruto. He can do a much better job. But I am saying our bar is too low, my friend. We need to put it high. We need to put this country in the league of first world countries in 10, 15 years. I'm not seeing the thinking coming from anybody among this standing. You see the difference now?
Yeah.
Within what is normal, that we say this development, hii ni maendeleo, wakulima watapata hii na hii, the Raila team can achieve that much better than the Ruto team.
But speaking from, listen to what Gerald is saying and giving himself as an example and saying, look, in the world in which I operate in, the answers that I've been looking for over time and what I'm being told today, these are things that resonate with me directly and for many other people in the country. Is that not so?
He didn't say that.
Gerald.
Just a moment.
He gave the example of access to credit.
That's what I want to say.
And being a businessman in this country where access to credit is very difficult. And he says,
allow me a second.
This is what I have.
Allow me a second, because I listened for a long time. First of all, Latiff was trying to drive Bitok to seeing that credit is not for Bitok. That credit they are talking about is for Mama Mboga. Bitok is not in that category of Mama Mboga, okay? The second thing is that this credit has been available. These funds are there. So the question to ask, what is new? What is new? And I'm not seeing that new. Because we have all sorts of devolved funds and funds available. What is new this time? But the more critical question you must ask, 100 billion, if you look at the debt portfolio of even one bank, ask them how much money is it. So that 100 or 50 billion cannot be money that can cover Latiff, Manyora, City, and Bitok. It is too little. But let's assume they could improve on it so that is enough. What then are you saying, Latiff? If you open your mind and ask yourself, are we there for seeing a situation where then you'll collapse the banks? Because if government can give credit, we extend from Mama Mboga, now we get to Bitok and Manyora. So we are locking out the banks as we know them. So banking now is being locked out of the Kenyan market. Fine. Who is it financing? It's financing the small people like Bitok and Manyora and Mama Mboga. Now that you have locked them out, are you going to cater for the long-term financing that goes with the investment, which banks will do? Because you kick them out. Because the moment you deny them this segment, because you're almost getting where Moi had gotten the country before Kibaki. Because when government became the only borrower, with all the interest rates, nobody else could borrow. Is that right? Credit wasn't available. Now you are creating a different but almost similar situation where you are saying government will give money to people so that people don't have to go to banks to borrow. You get it, because the moment you go beyond Mama Mboga, you come to him and me, you are essentially saying now government will be the one giving us credit. That means you deny banks that segment and the banks fall and they go out of Kenya.
Is that really
you are left
the
in a situation?
No,
you are left in a situation where
with
now,
the Youth Enterprise Development Fund, with the UWEZO Fund, with the Women's Fund,
yes,
the money is channeled through banks.
Yes.
Yes. The money is in banks, it's channeled through banks. Yes. What the government is doing is offering the credit guarantee scheme.
Yes.
They've even launched another one in 2020.
Yes.
A credit guarantee scheme. Yes. It's not necessarily locking the banks out of business. It is availing money to the banks for onward lending to the small business people. However, at a predetermined interest, and then there's a guarantee for the risk.
Then
it is
Latiff,
dealing with the risk aspect of the bank.
Then a man called Latiff, Eric, was not listening when Bitok was talking. You must be a very good listener. He said the reason why people can't access that credit is there are demands and conditions.
And I wanted to
listen. So that means this new one will be minus that.
Well, I think Bitok is still here.
I'm here.
So you are creating.
When you applied for this thing in 2015, Bitok,
Yes.
and tell us truthfully,
I've applied 4 times.
What were the conditions?
Here's a thing, and you see, it's hard because Manyora is getting a space to propagate 3 things: misinformation, propaganda, and hopelessness.
No.
That's what Manyora is done by many.
If you didn't get because just a moment, you didn't get because there were conditions. Logically, it means this one will be given without conditions.
Were you the one applying for the loan? It was me.
No,
okay, tell me why I did not get it.
But you have already told us there were conditions.
This is what I've said. And I'll repeat. And you know, first of all, let's start from where Manyora, before I lose the trail of thought. When Manyora tells you that if the government disperses money to the people, is closing out banks, but he believes that giving out 6,000 through the same mechanism cannot close out banks, then there's a conflict of knowledge or lack of it. Now, this money thing about the reason why credit is not accessible are 2 things. The government borrowing module, it has continued to borrow locally when it should borrow less locally and more internationally. 2, the cost of credit is high. When you speak about the government coming in, the same thing. You are subsidizing unga. Have you closed out millers? You're just simply saying, guys, you're milling your Mahindi at this price. We are giving you this money as government so that the people can access this cheaply. That's the same thing we're saying with credit. We have these enterprise funds that we've been looking at. The conditions for this has been obnoxious. In terms of what do you need, security from someone who is doing a startup is not available. So we are ensuring that the module of application for these loans should be more favorable to the people that we intend to get these loans. Unless you're intending another crowd to get the loan. But if you want the young people to access the loans, then you must ensure that it's flexible. For security reasons, this money, even money that the government disperses, the government does not pay contractors in the offices. You don't go to Treasury to pick your money. It's paid through banks. The same thing. We have the same mechanism for these loans. We ensure that these people can get cheap loans through the same mechanism of banks. Lower interest. The banks can access more funds from the government so they can continue to lend to the people at an affordable rate. This is what Manyora is not saying. Now, I want to bring the conversation that Manyora is bringing about personalities and what you're choosing from. I'm very clear on what I'm choosing from. I'm choosing from ideas. Whether that idea makes sense to Manyora or doesn't, it makes sense to me. From my level, I'm not speaking about I'm not Mama Boga.
Right.
But I'm speaking for myself as a young businessman on what does this agenda mean for me. You know, and if Manyora wants us to take our politics to the bush, where you say you guys show up, line up on a place, Pangeni Mulolongo, we look at how you are looking, you're tall or short, or how you're appealing to us, then we vote for you. That's not where we want to take this country. Let's bring it down to the personalities. He has mentioned about, he's talked about, and actually, Professor, I would expect you to have a better conversation, but we are here already. You've talked about William Ruto, the ticket of Kenya Kwanza, Rigathi Gachagua, and William Ruto. He said that it's a corrupt ticket. Right? He said that Martha Karua and Raila Odinga seem to be more clean. Let's look at these 2 personalities. Raila Odinga has corruption scandals that have been accused against him. We're talking about the Dominion land saga on equal access. We talk about the Maize saga. We talk about the Triton saga. We talk about the Molasses saga. We talk about all these sagas that have been pinned on him. He has been accused of running a political laundry at Upper Hill, Capitol Hill. One night, Anne Waiguru was corrupt until he went to campaign for BBI. Then Raila Odinga came out and said, Mama ni Musafi. Junet came out and said, Mama ni Musafi. They defended her in parliament when she was being impeached. Look at this. The other day, Sonko, not very far from it, Martha Karua was shaking the hands of my Sonko, whom right now is going to the East African Court of Justice to defend himself against corruption allegations. He has exhausted all the means in this country. The Supreme Court has ruled against him. But he was with Uhuru Kenyatta in Githurai campaigning. He was with Martha Karua shaking hands. He was with Raila Odinga. Suddenly, overnight, this guy is clean. Talk about Martha Karua that he's speaking about this morning, that we want to bring, if there's something that Manyora is big on is PR and propaganda, painting these guys as angels. Martha Karua has been accused of several scandals. During Kibaki's time, why did she resign? Several issues in government. Talking about the BAT that she was trying to explain the other day, that these guys were supporting. How can a company that had issues, you remember that time,
did she
BAT
resign because of allegations
was very
of
legal issues. So if we are talking about allegations and accusations, then we must look at both sides. But Manyora cannot convince us that the allegations on Kenya Kwanza, because these guys have not been charged in court. William Ruto, the other day, DPP, yesterday, actually, Nudin Haji said very clearly that William Ruto's name has never appeared in the Kimorera Narrow Dam scandal that these guys have been peddling for the longest time. So if we want to move away from the issues and we start talking about innuendos, and that is the mediocrity that we're having in these conversations. We are moving away from the real issues that are affecting Kenyans. We're beginning to discuss personalities, discussing accusations on people.
Gerald, what are the
you
real
want
issues?
to go there?
What are the real issues?
The real issues,
Yes.
yeah, the real issues. You know, where you sit City Muga, you know what the real issues is. The cost of living, joblessness. Talking about business environment, we have seen many businesses taking flight from this country, going to other countries to invest. Those are the real issues. We are talking about debt. We are talking about corruption. Those are the real issues. But when Manyora wants to reduce this conversation to saying, oh, how do you look like? How favorable do you think you look? How safe do you feel with you? We must discuss the real issues. For me, tell me how as a businessman I'm going to access credit. Tell me how as a university graduate I'm going to get employment.
So can we come back to the real issue? Because
Yes, let's get back to the real
you're
issues,
the one
yes.
who's dragging us down this rabbit hole.
I'm not.
As we came to you, back to you from Manyora, we asked, what is it that you face as a challenge in accessing credit from the Youth Enterprise
I've been very
Development
clear.
Fund, and how different is the Hustler Fund going to be?
Okay, this is what I've said. The old way on how it was structured, and this convention has been there. When you look at the audit reports on these funds, enterprise funds, the youth fund, and the women fund, when you look at the audit reports on those funds, first of all, it has been the process of dispersing them. It has never gone to the right people. It has gone to the wrong people. The same way with 30% tender opportunities for young people that you'll be saying, young people and women and people with disabilities. It has completely gone to people who have run proxies, companies that have been run through proxies. There are people who are sitting somewhere like you, Eric Latiff, you are very okay, you are not disabled, but you have someone who is a proxy who is disabled, you register a company and you procure a business at the expense of actually a properly disabled person who should get that. When you look at matters of credit, how many young people have been able to access credit? If I get the guy who runs that ministry right now, I would like him to lift his fingers and name them for me. They cannot do it. Thirdly, what is the procedure of accessing that fund? The bottleneck itself locks out the right people who are supposed to get that credit. Even as me. When you ask me for a title deed, where do I get a title deed when I'm starting a business?
You know, we've been here with the chairman of the Youth Enterprise Development Fund.
Yes.
And we asked him, what is the procedure for accessing these funds? He said the youth are basically guaranteeing one another. The issue of bringing physical collateral does not exist in the Youth Enterprise Development Fund.
This thing is
unless you applied for a different fund.
It's a Google search away on the requirements that you need to access that net. And I'm speaking from experience. When you talk about even young people guaranteeing
How much were you seeking? What kind of security did they
I was
ask you for?
actually seeking an LPO financing. And that LPO financing was an LPO that belonged to the government, specifically Madari Hospital at that time for the financing. And this is a government tender, a government LPO. Now, these guys are asking for security in terms of a title deed or an equivalent asset. They're asking for guarantees. So how many people are willing to guarantee other people and against what? Because all these young people don't have anything to guarantee you against.
An LPO financing presumes you already have the LPO.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
You already have the LPO, you don't have the money. And
Yes,
you're
but
saying,
the LPO is usually the guarantee.
and yes, saying, yes, and that's what you're saying. And that's what they're telling you. You have the LPO, but what is your security? What's the guarantee that you're giving in? And if you go even to that level...
security is not given in a physical thing. That is those things are guaranteed by banks and insurance companies. Yes, my friend.
And these guys are asking for title deed. So they're asking you for title deeds. Where do you get title deed from? Let's talk about guarantees.
In other words, if you have chosen to go the route that is crude, because the normal route in that process is insurance and banks. bank guarantees, insurance bonds, and so on kind of thing, which you get from insurance
There are
companies.
tools that the
So
bank
if you
will-
do not go that route, you think you don't want to bother, then you can bring collateral.
You can bring. If
Now,
I'm
talk about-
on the Youth Enterprise Fund website, and there's the LPO financing aspect, supporting young people to participate in government tenders. LPO financing, the loan is available to individuals, registered groups, partnerships, and companies owned and run by the youth. Youth can access up to 5 million shillings. The fund will finance 70% of the LPO amount. The loan attracts an interest of 15% after 90 days. A commission of 6.5% of the amount borrowed will be charged. The loan will be secured using the letter of undertaking, bank guarantees, and
Correct.
conventional security. Requirements: be registered with a relevant government body, a valid LPO from a qualifying agency, undertaking by the procuring entity to pay the tender proceeds in favor of youth enterprise, and the customer account details.
Simple.
So what is the process of getting a bank guarantee, for instance?
If you are a businessman, you must know it.
And I'm asking you, what do you do to get a bank
Then
guarantee?
you are doing the wrong
Actually,
thing.
you know, Gerald.
Titles don't come in, Jared. They don't.
Yeah, I was asking
They
for
don't
title,
come in.
for security. That's not about the equivalent.
You know,
of
Gerald
security.
is talking about his case. Maybe he was asked.
No.
But the truth, as he says, but the truth of the matter is it is not required.
It's not required.
The moment you have an LPO, your bank will be able to tell you what you need to do.
Yeah.
And actually, I tried that.
It is
And
always
that was what I was
insurance
asked for. I was
companies
asked for
for the
security.
bond,
And I would want
the
to
bank for
Yes.
the guarantee,
Yes.
and there's in the work with the people who have given LPO, they guarantee payments and they guarantee which banks the money will come from, and the payment will be made.
And the entity that you have.
But you can
we'd
choose
want-
to ignore that facility and say, I want to finance my own business.
And I'd want to get testimonies. I don't know. You guys, you operate from this place every single day. And I don't know from the time that you are the CEO of Enterprise Fund, I don't know how many testimonies you got from people who have been able to benefit from this fund. And I would be very interested to, even at this moment, since you're going to open up the conversation for callers to come in, I'll be very interested to get evidence from young people who have been able to access these funds, and at which procedure, how easy it was, and through who and who. I would like you to ask that question. Let's get it straight.
Those
Let's-
questions
let's
have been
get the
asked
numbers,
many
yes.
times by the various entities that are required to do that. The Auditor General's Office, parliamentarians, the board itself of the Youth Enterprise Development Fund, and the others. None of them has come and said that this fund is not benefiting the youth. Otherwise, there would have been a very strong recommendation that there is a corruption issue here, that let's close this fund. That tells you that there are people who are benefiting. I am not discounting, and I personally also believe that there are people who have played the game, played the system, and gone to the Youth Enterprise Development Fund to acquire finances when the beneficial owner of that company is not a youth.
Let me say something.
Before
Let me say something.
I
Just
remember
quickly.
almost 2 weeks ago, I was listening to you guys, and City Muga was reading out an article on the dailies about an audit on the Youth Enterprise Fund of money that was disbursed that cannot be traced to any youth account, only be traced to any account, and that was an audit query. Now, from that backdrop, you tell me, from that backdrop, that money has been claimed to have been disbursed, but this money...
It was education.
It was the
No,
education.
the education was last week. There was an issue on the fund.
No, just go on. Yes.
So, against that backdrop, you are telling the same guys that you should be holding responsible for these funds to tell you whether you'd have been benefiting or not. I'm telling you, give me testimonies of young people. who have
So
accessed
what
these funds.
safeguards then do we have in the proposal by Kenya Kwanza that all this 500 billion shilling money that will be going to various groups, farmers, youth, hustlers and all, is actually going to be disbursed properly, accountably? What safeguards do
Two things that I think they've spoken very strongly about it, and I have had the Deputy President speaking about it, reforming those funds. He has spoken about it several times, that they have become avenues of corruption and leaking out money, government money, to people who are not supposed to be getting it. Reforming that fund in itself is a key to ensuring that. Secondly, is ensuring that how easily can people access this, taking it down to the people. Why do I need to come to Nairobi to CBD to apply for these funds? How can we ensure that these funds are taken down to the people in different counties, and also taking it down even to the district level? So first of all, is reforming it to ensure that it gets to the policies around it itself safeguards it against misuse and abuse. Secondly, is ensuring that it's taken down to the people that really need it. So it's all about reform. The money is there. But the question is it being used for the right purposes? The distribution mechanism, is it fair to the people that deserve to use this credit? Because if it is not, then it's unnecessary. It's like you telling me you put a cup of coffee on that side through this glass. I can see it, but I cannot pick it. And you're telling me, guys, you're seeing the money is there. That glass is there. Why are you not taking the tea? Why don't you put your chai?
Latiff, I wanted to say this.
So we're seeing a glass, there's a glass ceiling, we're seeing the money.
Gerald has just been brought a cup of tea.
You can see where the problem
At least I can access it.
now see where the problem is.
He could see the tea.
You can see this so-called hustler fund and the rest. Two things come out clearly. One, it is most likely it's just a campaign gimmick. Because if it is not, then the second thing must be addressed. The ignorance. As ably demonstrated here by...
Whose ignorance?
The people, if they don't know that these funds are there, and yet they are not reaching people, and they don't know that these funds don't have the conditionalities they are thinking. They don't even know that these funds have been devolved. They are right to the villages.
Okay.
And yet the absorption is wanting. And yet the impact is not evident. So that's why you must begin. But again, more critically, if I was reading him, he has a point that this time it can succeed. But the success will be depending more on the people determined to make it succeed than anything on the ground in terms of structures and all that. It is the people determined. So it takes us back up where we are saying, where this country is, and the problems that need to be fixed in this country must take us to the question of who among the choices we have can help us sort out this problem. Because it's a problem of corruption. You have said, the reason why young people are not getting this is about corruption. It's about integrity. It's about impunity.
So he's not corrupt.
And now, when you ask that question, you must sneak in the Mother Karua or Raila, but you can even see yourself, you are forcing it. Because it's not in a teleza, it's like you put oil with water. You know? It's easy to say something about Raila. It's easy to say something about Mother Karua. But when you talk about Gachagua, we are talking about things that are there on the table. These are things that have been tabled in the courts, and the cases are going on. We talk about William Ruto. There are many issues that have been taken. He has been to court not once, not twice, not 3 times. He has been found guilty on those things. You know the Muteshi land? He was found guilty for grabbing somebody's land during the clashes, during the post-election violence, and he was asked to return the land to Muteshi and pay a fine of 5 million shillings. For him, we have tangible evidence. But that's not where we are going. We are only saying, generally speaking, you look at Raila and look at Ruto, and unless something is blurring your vision, you say, okay, I'm not saying Raila is a god, okay? But comparatively, surely, there can be no comparison between Raila and Ruto in terms of integrity, in terms of forthrightness, in terms of the ability to stand for the people and work for the people and think about the country and put the country first. But both of them are good gentlemen. They are good Kenyans.
You know, one of the things that I've always found puzzling about this discussion.
City?
Yes.
So we take a break?
Yeah, let's take a break.
Okay. Let's take this break. Take a look at the weather and traffic. The conversation continues. We are having some slight technical issue with our phone line. So please put your comments on our social media, SpiceFM KE, on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram, or what's the other one? YouTube. Okay. Between Kenya Kwanza and Azimio, in whose hands are you safe, and what are you using to make your decision? What are you using as a yardstick to make a decision? Is it the promises, the campaign promises? Is it the integrity, the personal integrity of the persons? Is it the track record of the individuals? What are you using to make your determination? Elections bila noma means that we go into this election, it doesn't matter whether it's Kenya Kwanza, whether it's Azimio, whether it's Mwaure Waihika or Professor George Ojakoya, whoever you choose as your president or MP or senator or governor or MCA, it's your choice, and your neighbor also has a right to make their own choice. Pocket by Mozilla?
Yes, Pocket by Mozilla also allows you to save your information for later. Stuff that you want to read, listen to, or even explore. Put it away in your pocket. Download the app on Google Play Store or Apple App Store and find out how you can experience content that you don't have to read just at once, but you can look at later.
If I'm found guilty, there is no problem. I'm willing to serve. I have no problem. Jails are meant for human beings.
They say a society gets the leadership it deserves. If you have a corrupt, crooked and rotten society like we have in Kenya, then of course they will get that kind of a leadership.
I think the president should dissolve parliament. That's the best solution at this moment in time. Dissolve parliament.
All of you go home.
Yes, we all go home.
How are we encouraging other people who might have new and creative ideas? Young people who are making money without any government help. They are just buying their own bundles. They are going on TikTok and making money. KRA is coming after them.
I've been in parliament for 15 years. We have been unable to pass the gender law. And yet no presidential candidate is talking about it now. Because we are fake. The truth is, all the men refused to vote for that law.
What did Sonko do to Pumwani Maternity Hospital?
Yeah, he
with
cleaned
his
it
own
up.
money.
Cleaned it with his own money. That was him as an individual.
Yeah. And I did not say he was cleaning his own money. I was saying he cleaned
Foot, mouth. Foot, mouth. Eric.
Okay.
The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation.
Cloudy conditions in Nairobi at 15, highs of 21 and lows of 14. It's 16 in Nakuru. We'll see highs of 23 and lows of 13. Raining now in Nyeri at 14, highs of 19, and we'll see highs of 22 in a mostly cloudy Eldoret at 17. Light rain at 23 in Mombasa, highs of 26, and we'll see highs of 26 as well in a rainy Malindi. And it's sunny in Kisumu at 21. We'll see highs of 27. 26 will be the high in a sunny Kakamega at 22. Kampala is sunny at 23, highs of 27, and we'll see highs of 28 in a rainy Dar es Salaam, currently at 23. It's 11 degrees and sunny in Johannesburg, highs of 16 and lows of 7. Cloudy at 24 in Lagos, highs of 29. And we'll see highs of 30 in a cloudy Kinshasa at 23. It's 33 and sunny out in Beijing, highs of 34, and we'll see highs of 28 in a sunny Paris this morning at 19. It's sunny at 18 in London, highs of 24, and New York is clear at 27, highs of 34. And lows of 25.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
All right, clock says we're out of traffic hour. Not too terrible at the moment. We're still looking at that issue on the expressway, especially at that exit at Westlands. It's quite messy because it's really tight in terms of traffic. The Thika Superhighway looks really good, as it does on Kiambu Road, so that's over. We shouldn't have too much of a traffic issue. Langata is also thinning out, so that's good as well as coming off Gong Road. That hasn't been too bad. Jogo Road still giving it off this morning. Not as heavy as it was about an hour ago, but we should be all right. Lunga in and outbound traffic still continues here and there. But we're all right. You should get where you're going in no time this morning. Through the morning, let us know if anything does go wrong on SpiceFM. KE on Twitter.
Business news with SpiceFM.
I'm Dennis Aseto. The National Treasury is seeking to restructure 57.4 billion shillings worth of publicly guaranteed loans issued to national carrier Kenya Airways. The amount covers part of KQ's guaranteed debt principal as of end of March this year. The disclosure of the exchequer follows the conclusion of a restructuring action plan for the troubled airline, which includes a loan arrangement and conditions by government for providing financial support to the carrier. Investors in government securities have snapped treasury bonds on offer this month after bidding 10.6 billion shillings for the issue against a target of 40 billion shillings. This resulting in the acceptance of a mere 9.3 billion shillings by the exchequer at the end of July's bond sale. The poor performance of this issue was nevertheless expected by analysts who saw tighter financing conditions in the market. And Keroche Breweries has urged the Kenya Revenue Authority to comply with the High Court order issued on July 14th that mandated the taxman to reopen the beer makers brewery in Naivasha, which has been closed periodically over pending tax arrears. In a statement, Keroche slammed KRA for failing to adhere to the directive, despite having an application petitioning the initial order dismissed by the same court on July 18th. KRA had moved to court on July 18th, seeking an order to stop the reopening of the brewery. The European Union has unveiled its emergency gas rationing plan a day before it fears Russia could drastically cut the flow of natural gas to the continent. The announced Save Gas for a Safe Winter sets a target of the 27 member states to reduce their gas demand by 15% between August and March next year. The reduction is based on countries' average gas consumption during the same months over the previous 5 years. A new show about a young female attorney has become another South Korean hit on Netflix, giving investors hope that the producer may have another Squid Game-like success on its hands. Extraordinary Attorney Woo has topped watchlists on the streaming platforms for the last 2 weeks. It was the most watched non-English television show on Netflix globally from July 4th to 17th, according to the company's metrics. For Spice Business, I'm Dennis Aseto.
Spice FM Business. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself.
Mornings done
16
right.
to 10. We continue the
94.4
conversation.
Spice
Roundup Talk
FM,
and Hannah
Nairobi.
Manyora are here with us. We are talking about interrogating the choice that we are about to make in 18 days. Looking at the major coalitions, the Kenya Kwanza coalition, the Azimio la Umoja coalition, Herman Manyora says, okay, if you look at the promises, then there's nothing that distinguishes the two camps. They now go into the personalities, and what then you look at is the probability of them delivering on anything that they've said. Then in that case, then Herman, I'd say, well, we don't have a choice.
Actually,
we have the other two choices, probably. The new ones, the untried and untested.
Wajakoya and Mwaure.
Yes.
But we did start by saying that we the best from what we have. And that's how it is everywhere in the world. In a population of 50 million, Raila and Ruto cannot be the best we have. But it is the best
that's available.
Available. I mean, they can't be the best. Absolutely not. Biden and Trump were not the best America could offer. But they are the ones who reached that far, that high. And Americans had to choose between these two old men.
I'm curious as to the choices then that remain for those who don't have any kind of allegiance to any of these two sides, because we must admit that there are some who are making this decision based on their allegiance alone. It doesn't matter what comes out of the mouths of these
historical
two.
allegiance.
Yeah, they're going to vote for them regardless.
Yes.
But there are those who are caught in the balance, who for real want to be able to be convinced that their vote is going to translate into something better for them.
Yes.
Because
this time round,
it's not about who your allegiance is with. It's about how we're going to make it better in this country. How are you going to guarantee that your children are going to go to school? How are you going to guarantee that 3 square meals a day are on your table? How are you going to make sure that you walk into hospital and you get healthcare that you can afford? It has nothing to do with who is from. It has everything to do with who are you hedging your bets on. So what about those people who are hanging in that particular balance? How do they make a decision based on what we are being told today by either side?
Because the country is divided roughly into two. We have pro-Raila and pro-Ruto. They don't care whatever you say, there's nothing. And this is over 80% of the voters. Now, that small percentage of voters, the thinking voter, if you want to call them like that, are the people that things like debates, work for. They are the people who look at Muga and interrogate Muga as a person. They look at his past record. They look at Raila. And they are weighing the options. They are looking at the past of Ruto and the past of Raila and the achievements of Raila and Ruto. And they are then convinced after that search that I think I'll go with Ruto. Or I think I'll go with. So it comes back to what I'm saying. It's the same thing that I don't know that this thing is okay.
It's fine.
It comes back to the same thing, that ultimately and finally, between Raila and Ruto, who do I see as being able to carry my aspirations, to put food on the table for Kenyans, to ensure Kenyan children get some form of good education? That's how it's nothing. It has nothing to do with any of these programs they are saying. At the top, in terms of what you are considering, is the sort of person you believe can do that. You see, it's not these things they are talking about. The sort of person first. And because, Latiff, the biggest challenge we have in this country is corruption, theft of public resources. Without these resources, anything you want to do will not be done. So it gets back to what Manyora has been saying this morning. Who do you think can deal with that corruption? Without dealing with corruption. In whose hands
did corruption thrive?
Yes, that's what you also want to look at.
Okay, so then the choices we have are Professor George Wajackoyah and Mwaure Wahiga.
We have already said they are ruled themselves out by the law of natural selection.
No, I'm saying, if we're to strictly then look and follow your argument to its logical conclusion, has Raila been in government? Yes. Has Raila occupied an executive role in government? Yes. Has Karua been in government? Yes. Has she occupied an executive role in government?
Correct.
Similar to
William
Ruto.
Similar to Gachagua Sadio.
Was there corruption during their time in government?
Correct. Yes, there was.
Was there increase or decrease in corruption? There was increase. Okay. So then if corruption has thrived when these people have been in positions of authority, what guarantee do we have it's going to be different, that they can fight corruption
Again, you are missing the point. We have said none of these people is as white as snow. Though Raila says is as white as snow. None of them is as white as snow. Again, going back to the choice we have between Raila and Ruth. That's what you have now. You don't have Wajackoyah and Ruth. Those ones are not on the choice.
They are
not on
the
the
choice.
ballot.
They are on the ballot.
In America, there will be, if it is America, people of that nature do not appear on the ballot in the sense that they just appear on a few states ballots. It's not like here you appear in everywhere. You just choose a few states and you appear testing your popularity. So the people on the ballot were Biden and
Kenya,
despite there having been many other candidates.
In Kenya,
so in Kenya we are
on
saying,
the ballot.
No.
There's 18 days. There's no reason at all why today Herman Manyora cannot even just think and listen to what he is saying and change his own mind and vote for Mwaure Wahiga.
That will be good.
No reason at all.
And there are many people who
unless
will vote
he's
for Mwaure.
saying that he is beholden to Raila.
There are many people who will vote for Mwaure. There are many people who will vote for Wajackoyah, including yours truly. But my vote is not enough to take him to the league of those competing for the presidency. So we are left again with Raila and Ruto. And once more, the question comes. They have been in the government. We know them. Who can we trust? Despite all the shortcomings both of them would have. What can we live with? It's a question of something you can live with. It's not a question of an angel.
It's a tragedy, though, that our elections have come to that. What we can put up with, as opposed to what we can hope for.
Or
even believe in. Yeah. Because in reality, this undecided vote that the pollsters keep referring to, if you look at it, it's a large number.
It is a large number.
It's
around Kenya.
Yes, it's not something you can wish away. And even if you look county by county, it's a very significant number.
Correct.
And for the first time, in a very long time, we are clear about who the tiebreakers will be. Is this undecided group?
Yes.
Because if they move to one side, clear as daylight, the person wins.
And that's why it goes back to the individuals. And in this case, in my thinking, from my own assessment, it is the people of Mount Kenya who not only have the bulk of the undecided, but who will actually decide this election. And they have to choose between Martha Karua. Once again, about individuals, the people who will decide this election are the people of Mount Kenya. And they're having to look at Martha Karua and Rigathi Gachagua, and making the choice on the basis between Martha Karua and Rigathi Gachagua. Who would the community trust to be their future leader after Uhuru? Who can they sell to the Kenyan public after Raila or after Ruto to get votes? It's simple. It goes back to the individual. So the people who will decide this election are people from Mount Kenya. And they are having to choose between Martha Karua and Rigathi Gachagua. And they are having to choose on the basis of who can be the next community leader, of who they can sell to the rest of the country to become president after Raila or Ruto. And you can see again, the choice for them is also as simple as it is for the rest of the country.
Herman, it is simple for you.
Do you think it's as easy as that?
I think it is.
Gerald.
Actually, I don't know who Aman speaks for. The more I listen to him, the more I get lost. I don't know who he speaks for. When
We shall find
that those are, and I mean, for me, I still insist that Aman speaks from a point of hopelessness. Some of us, we want to see an hopeful nation where we can discuss ideas and not personalities. We can look forward to a country where something can speak to us more than people. That I can listen to Aman Manyora and not look at Aman Manyora, but look at the ideas that he's giving on running a nation. Because it's not about the 2 people. It's not about the 4 people. I still insist that, Aman, I want to look forward to a day I can listen to you and listen to what you're saying and not look at you as a person. And that is where I insist we take our politics to. Because as Aman has said, I mean, the pool is dirty. The fish there, they're muddy. But you're looking at the fish and saying which one has a better chance of giving us some nutrition, some level of nutrition in terms of the ideas. So I still insist, if we have to move forward as this country, then we must go back to interrogating the ideas. And that is where Aman doesn't want to go. He doesn't want to go there.
But Gerald, the truth of the matter is that our politics, much as we like to talk about the ideas and what has been put across, our political parties are parties that are owned by individuals. I mean, let's just start there. So even when you're talking about ideas, where do the ideas fit in? We're trying to fit them in, and we should try to fit them in. But you give the example of America, parties matter. So whereas here we vote for individuals, there they vote for parties. That's where the difference comes in. So the idea is actually nestled in the party. This party represents this. This other party represents this.
But
so long as individuals hold the helm, unfortunately, we have to interrogate individuals.
And that is exactly what I'm saying, is we must take away the administration of a nation and the running of this nation away from individuals and look at it in a better spectrum of ideas. In Kenya, we don't have parties that stand for anything. That is here, they stand for, you come, you want to use it as a vehicle, you cross over. Jubilee, it was fitted as a party that was going to outlive the political scene and all that. Today, Jubilee is a former image of itself. Jubilee is stuck in a village. It cannot even move. It doesn't have tires. In a gearbox. Imewekwa juu ya mawe. And that is a party that we said we're going to drive the vision of this country. Look at ODM. It doesn't represent anything at all. And this is my position actually about parties.
You do know that people will disagree with you on that ODM issue, because so long as there's a party, call it whatever it has people, believe me, the people who are in that party believe that party stands for something.
And those are the people who are in that party. And for me, is what I'm advocating.
The other observers.
Yes, I mean, I'm not in that party. I'm even new. You'll tell me, if I ask you what does ODM stand for, you don't have any explanation around it. And by the way, Kenyan politics needs to move away from parties. And that is why, for me, I celebrate the rise of independence.
Not parties.
Yes, and that's why there are people, I suppose, who are running on independent tickets.
Gerald, what does UDA stand for then?
And that's why I've not spoken for any party. Have you heard me speaking about UDA?
No. I've asked you a very specific question. What does UDA stand for?
And as I've said, parties in Kenya don't stand for anything consistent. What they stand for today is not what they stand for tomorrow.
Actually, they stand for the same thing. As Herman said, listen to what they tell you. They are all regurgitating the same thing. You look at manifestos. You know, I have to admit, the UDA manifesto on health, you get the impression they listened to health practitioners, because it makes a lot more sense than the Azimio one. But
even
that having
even
been
on
said,
education, even on education as well, in actually almost all sectors, it almost speaks to the issues of those people.
Now, Gerald.
I'm speaking about the manifesto. I'm not speaking about a party. I'm speaking about the manifesto. I'm speaking about the plan. I'm speaking about the plan. You want to take me to speak about the party? I'm speaking about the plan. I'm speaking about the manifesto.
Muga a bit. City wanted to give you just one banana. You're taking the entire bunch.
No, the guy won't take the whole farm.
Muga wanted to correct you a bit.
I'm happy because, I mean, he's reading from a point of objectivity. He has looked at what manifestos and he's being very honest. And your place in heaven will have Wi-Fi and some socket for charging your phone. Because you're being honest. You have looked at these manifestos and you become very objective.
Muga wanted to correct you a bit.
Please, Herman, correct me.
Whereas it is entirely true that these Western democracies have well-established parties that stand for things, it is not entirely true that you can run an election without a personality at the center of that election.
I agree.
Yeah, so people matter. People look at Trump and they look at the kind of person he is, and he excites the American public.
I agree
so
with you.
there is no. The British have just replaced they're in the process of replacing their Boris Lessing, and this Kenyan is getting it.
Boris Yeltsin.
So the idea is Muga and the rest. You not run away from the person and the individual, what they stand for, the kind sort of history they have.
Yes.
That is something you are not going to escape at all. And back to the manifesto. I have looked at these so-called manifestos and plans. They are all the same. There is nothing. There is nothing new or different about them. Even giving 6,000 as opposed to the Hustler Nation giving the Hustler Fund. All these things, if you subject them to scrutiny, you get to find that they are wanting seriously. And that this country will be saved in only one way. Because I love this country. This country will be saved if we have a man or a woman in State House who sends a message from day one that it's not business as usual. The country is taking a different trajectory. From today onwards, please, steal public funds at your peril.
Na unaenda ndani.
Hakuna mtu ataiba. So weka mtu kama mother mpatie justice. And she says 6 months.
We are concluding.
She says 6 months. Mtu akijua kesi itaisha 6 months.
In 2002 December, a man sitting on a wheelchair read a speech to the country and to the world.
On 30th of December.
And he said it will not be business as usual.
Yes.
When I've sworn in office. What happened? Thank you very much for tuning in to Kenya's biggest conversation, the situation.
More than usual.
Gerald Bitok and Herman Manyora, thank you very much, gentlemen, for joining us.
Wonderful.
You've earned yourself another invitation. Have a lovely day, folks. Enjoy your Thursday. Remember, it's elections Bilanoma, Standard Group and NCIC are reminding you, Penda Jirani, a very good morning to you, 10 a.m.
Spice up your life. The latest news from around the